degrees. That's all from Highland Radio News for now. We'll be back with news again at 9 o'clock. Until then, good morning.
You're actually here.
Robbie Williams.
Fame can take a lot of getting used to.
And
Felix.
Two legends, one stage.
It's great to be a cat.
Catch the fun at felixandrobbie.com. Purina.
The county's #1 talk show, The 9 till Noon Show on Highland Radio. And now it's time for the talk of the Northwest, The 9 to Noon Show with Greg Hughes on Highland Radio.
Hello, a very good morning. You're very welcome along to the 9 till Noon Show here in Highland Radio. It's 3 minutes past 9, Friday, the 3rd of February, and we welcome you to the programme. Now, how do you contact us and get involved in the conversation as our Friday panel joins us? Well, you can text or WhatsApp 086 60 25,000. That's 086 60 25,000. Or give us a call on 07491 25,000. If you wish to email, it's comments@highlandradio.com. And, you know, we still get the odd letter. They're more than welcome. The 9 till Noon Show, Highland Radio, Mountain Top Letter Kenny. And, of course, as always, you can watch the programme on our website, highlandradio.com, or on YouTube or Facebook. Coming up a little later on, we have Seamus Gunn. He'll be joining us to answer your legal questions. So if you have any questions for Seamus, get them into us on the numbers that I've just mentioned, or and then obviously after 11 o'clock, it's Friday, so that's Michael and Fanula joining us for That's Entertainment. All right, okay. We are initially going to be joined by our guests on the telephone line. They'll rejoin us on Zoom a little later on. But firstly, we say good morning to Richard Logue, Project Manager in Transport London. Good morning, Richard.
Good morning. How are you?
It's good. I'm good. It's good to have you with us. How are you keeping?
Yeah, pretty busy, and looking forward to some potential developments coming down the line for Donegal in coming weeks, as soon as we can hear anything on this All-Ireland Rail Review.
Yeah.
So, feeling pretty optimistic.
Yeah, the direction of traffic, let me put it like that, seems to be moving in the right direction in terms of a rail link.
Well, certainly the mood music coming from Eamon Ryan and what we know so far, which has been effectively leaked from the All-Ireland Rail Review, sounds promising. Obviously, the Ulster man in me says, show me the evidence. So we'll have to see what comes out. But definitely, I'm feeling probably more optimistic now than I ever have been about possible revolution in transport for Donegal, which would be something else, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, but back to the future, or future to back to history, I don't know how you might describe it, but anyway, we'll talk about that a little later on, I would say. I want to say good morning to Dr. Peter O'Rourke, former consultant orthopaedic surgeon. Good morning to you, Peter.
Good morning, how are you?
I am good, thank you so much for joining us. And last but not least, Laura McMonigal, the editor of the Donegal newspaper. How are you keeping, Laura? Great to have you on the 9 till Noon Show.
Good morning, Greg. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us. Okay. We need to start, I suppose, with the story that's dominating the conversation, certainly out in the streets, if not on the media all the time. And it is that increase in protests across the country at the establishment of accommodation for migrants. The government says even with consultation, it wouldn't prevent many of these protests taking place. And they're insisting that they must continue to meet their international obligations. We hear Roderick O'Gorman is seeking more accommodation right around the country. And there's various elements to these protests, but many of them are locals who are concerned of the impact of the influx of new people. There seems to be a particular concern of men, what it might have, the impact it might have on their communities. I'll start with you, Peter. I presume, or I can't presume, sorry. Do you understand people's concerns? What do you think's going on, and where do you think it will all end?
I think when the numbers involved were so high, it was predictable there would be some reaction, but I've no idea where it'll end. Unfortunately, our asylum-seeking program, our seekers program, has taken so long for people to actually get processed to get a positive or negative result in their appeal, it means that there's a large backlog, and that's just increasing. I think the Ukrainian situation is slightly different because I'm quite sure the majority of the Ukrainians will want to return home as soon as it is safe to do so. But the fact that there's such a large volume of people coming into the country and putting a strain on resources, and also putting I suppose a strain on every resource, be it hospitals, schools and everything else, was bound to get some reaction. So it's not surprising, but it is unfortunate.
And how do you think things will play out?
I would imagine there will be more protest as there are increasing numbers of people coming into the country, unfortunately. But I think when the Ukrainian war ends and a vast majority of the refugees go home, I think the pressure on services will ease. But in the short term, I think there will probably be more reaction from people in different parts of the country who feel that their needs haven't been looked after, and there's preferential treatment for refugees, which is not really true, but it will be, I suppose, a proposition put forward by a lot of people who want to create trouble and cause protest.
Yeah, but there is obviously, this is going to feed into, Peter, a sense that the government is failing in its obligation to the people in terms of health provision, in terms of housing, and then they see people coming in. There is concerns about, people's backgrounds and what have you. And I think maybe when people see how their lives are going and they see how others are being treated and how much money's been spent in that area, I think that is what is creating these very, in their minds, genuine concerns.
Yes, I agree with you totally. I mean, if you're struggling and then you see your government putting vast resources into people from another country, it is obviously going to not sit well with a lot of people and feel that the government should be looking after them rather than looking after people from another country. And that's what is going to allow people who have an agenda to try and cause trouble to actually increase the support they get.
OK, Laura McMonigal, editor of the Donegal newspaper, good morning to you again. What do you think of what's going on?
Well, I think some of the images that we've seen at some of the protests have been very concerning. I was reading the piece in the Irish Times this morning about Minister O'Gorman writing to all ministers and asking for help in finding the likes of sports centres and large buildings to house refugees and, sleeping bags and mattresses. And I think obviously there's a problem. Like, we need the government to act on this. There's genuine concern out there, and this concern needs to be directed at the government. It's their policy. I know they were saying that it's not their policy not to have consultation with community, but I think there has to be maybe more consultation with local communities to have a chat and say, look, what supports are needed for refugees and what can we do to help.
You see, the problem is it not, Laura, that the government know fine rightly, and that's why they abandoned you might remember when there was talk of a direct provision centre in Moville, at around about that time, they abandoned the consultation process because people were coming into a room and making very strong arguments about their lack of access to GPs, problems at the hospital, issues with child care places, issues with places in schools. And there's no answer to that, really. There's no argument that government or their representatives can win in that regard. So that's why I think to some extent, that's why they've jacked in the consultation element of it. I don't think there would be any, or there'd be very few direct provision centres or accommodation centres if consultation was undertaken properly.
Yeah, there's no doubt that services are being stretched, and Ireland's capacity to deal with this is being stretched. We need to have a situation where the government really need to look at their policy overall. Like, Ireland has led the way as one of the first countries to welcome people, and I think we can do our part, but we have to remember that we are a small country and resources aren't endless. Also, other international countries have to play their part as well, just as Ireland has. I think it's good to remember as well that, look, there's a lot of goodwill out there. Just yesterday there was a coffee morning in Falcara, and they had a welcome morning for Ukrainian refugees. So there are a lot of good stories out there that we need to remember about. But a lot of this has played out on social media as well, where there is no doubt there's a lot of anger there, and But again, I think the genuine concerns of people need to be directed at the government.
Yeah, and to some extent then, if you're outside one of these buildings and there are people inside it, they're almost scapegoats. In other words, that really, I'm not saying people should go outside the elected politicians' houses, of course, but the place to protest then is where these decisions are being taken.
Well, exactly, where the decisions are being made, definitely.
Yeah, okay. Richard Logue, what do you think?
Okay, I think the whole issue actually is a real indictment of the state's failure to do proper planning over the last 40, 50 years, because the fact that we've gone to the direct provision model for housing asylum seekers when other countries have been able to absorb them into social housing even temporarily just goes to show that we have ended up basically having to deal with almost sticking plaster solutions to a lot of these problems. Now, obviously, with the influx of Ukrainian refugees, and we rightly welcome them, because of the trials and tribulations they've had because of the war through no fault of their own. It has stretched the already fairly meagre provisions. And also, I have two concerns, I suppose. The first concern is that there are elements within the far right in Ireland who are looking to exploit people's natural concerns about people getting, provision for things like medical cards and all of that. And I think they're using it as a platform. I was reading also in the Irish Times this morning that there was a protest in Mullingar, which a lot of people came up from Dublin to take part in, which strikes me as something being organised on a fairly serious basis rather than a supposed ad hoc protest by locals. But the real issue is that the direct provision model is really flawed in the first place. And I think in 25, 30 years, it's going to be seen as our Magdalene laundries. And, the root cause of the issues that people have are two things, I think. One is that we have a very poor access to free healthcare in this country. It's entirely means tested around the medical card. That model is really flawed. And then we also have, as I said, inadequate planning. So we end up in a situation where people are having to go onto camp beds and things like that. Now, when I talk about planning, I'm talking about 20, 30 years ahead. I'm not talking about trying to sort of scramble around now and do everything at the last minute. But as I say, I think there are elements out there who are using people's natural unhappiness about access to things like housing and medical care, and they're harnessing it for what I consider not to be very honourable reasons.
Okay, but maybe they are in some cases, and I don't think it was the case necessarily in Mullingar from the reports I've read. Maybe in some cases there are elements that will latch on to this for their own means, or to maybe direct it down their own agenda, dependent on who's watching their streams or not. But that doesn't take away from the fact that there are a lot of women. A lot of women with children and their partners or not who are going out, and their concerns are for the safety of their children. And it is not about the Ukrainian women and children for the most part. It is, and, we might as well have the conversation out in front here. It's not those that we're talking about here. They're concerned about large groups of males being bussed in to different parts of the country, and they're being given no reassurance of, their backgrounds or anything along those lines.
Yeah, there certainly are. There are concerns, but I think that the elements that are actually organising these protests, I don't believe for 1 minute that they're actually doing it for honourable reasons. I think there is a huge element of racism. We can't forget that we as Irish people were a migrant race ourselves for over 100 years since the famine, and we faced all sorts of terrible problems when we went to England, when we went to America back in the past. And the bottom line is that we are now a fairly wealthy country, thank God, and we have somewhat of a labour shortage. People are looking for jobs, but in terms of the asylum seekers side of things, we're still under an obligation through our international obligations to actually accept a number of people.
All
and
right.
Proportionately, we're not accepting any more than most.
Yep, right. Richard, stay where you are. We are going to take a quick break, and hopefully we'll be able to get you, Richard, logged in now on Zoom. The technical issues have been resolved. We'll be rejoined again by Peter, Laura and Richard after we take this break.
The 9 till Noon Show, brought to you by Bluebird Care, providing nurse-led home care services in Donegal. Call Bluebird Care 9129562 and bring care home.
Ireland's biggest ever tribute weekend is coming back to Donegal. Trib Bash 2023 is taking place at the Clanry Hotel, Letterkenny on the 10th and 11th of February. The nation's very best tribute acts take to the stage with the fantastic award-winning Johnny Cash and June Carter tribute show Cash Returns, the sellout show Mac Fleetwood as Fleetwood Mac, the smash hit ABBA tribute with Bjorn Identity, and the show-stopping Queen tribute. Limited tickets available now at the hotel reception and online at eventbrite.ie. Trib Bash 2023. The perfect Valentine's party weekend. Join Homeland and Nutrius Animal Feeds for our Farming Future event at 8 p.m. in the Mount Erigal Hotel, Letterkenny on Tuesday, 7th of February. An informative evening highlighting essential schemes such as CAP 2023, forage advice, and the 2022 Donegal Silage Competition results and presentations. Speakers will include representatives from Teagasc and Grassland Agro. Enjoy spot prizes, refreshments, and meter suppliers on the evening. 8 p.m. 7th of February, Mount Erigal Hotel, Letterkenny. Looking forward to seeing you there. For more info, visit homeland.ie.
It's where you live. It's where you relax. It's where you make memories. Treat your home to a visit to Cooney's Home Interiors. We have everything in store to help recreate your home. Choose from our extensive range of suites, tables, beds, mattresses, and home furnishings for every room. Cooney's Home Interiors, Letterkenny. Style and perfection at incredible value.
All right, you welcome back to the 9 till Noon Show. We're going to stay on this issue for just a short while. Laura, in terms of, you mentioned, you know, a positive thing in terms of that coffee morning that took place in Falcara, I think you mentioned recently. And you know, if that's posted or put in a paper, people, you know, it gets a certain amount of traction. But I did note one post from an individual who talked about the interaction between a local woman and seemingly, you know, someone who's moved to this country really recently, and it exploded onto social media. And, you know, I'm not questioning the person's motivations, whatever. I'm just saying it's a fact. It got shared all over the place, tons of comments, and an awful lot of fear. There's an awful lot of people that are genuinely fearful. Now, whether that's right or wrong is a whole other debate or not, but it is something that's the government cannot ignore any longer, I don't think.
Yeah, I think, as I said, a lot of this is playing out on social media. And look, there's no filters on social media. Obviously, like, the media have a role to play in this and to be responsible. But on social media, there's no filter. People do have concerns, but maybe it's easier to, you know, be a keyboard warrior online. As Richard had mentioned, there was people coming up from Dublin to attend that protest in Westmeath. So we would have to look at, in that terms, there obviously was a lot of local concern there. But as I mentioned, I think that concern needs to be directed at the policymakers rather than, you know, the people that are staying in these situations.
And Peter, what do you think the government can do in this regard? I mean, obviously they will reference our international obligation, but it's also been noted that right across Europe, this is not an Irish problem, that right across Europe there are similar concerns and protests taking place, and European leaders are saying, look, we have our role to play in this. But at the end of the day, I think you can't ignore a growing voice from the people forever either. You know, I do think that's what's coming down the line for various governments.
Well, I think part of the problem has started with the Good Friday Agreement, where we almost had an open border policy. I mean, I think we do have an obligation to look after refugees, but in a structured way. I mean, if we are taking Syrian refugees who are flown in after being vetted and brought into the country, or from Afghanistan and places like that, I think that's perfectly reasonable. But unfortunately, anybody who lands in Dublin Airport from a plane from anywhere can claim refugee asylum, whereas that is not directly in the rules. They're meant to claim asylum in the country in which they first land outside their whatever country they've left. So if we actually, I think, adhered to the policies and actually had a firm policy and allowed people who did seek refugee status to be processed quickly within a matter of days or weeks and either given the status or returned to wherever they came from, that would help. The problem is that you constantly in the media have situations where people arrive, claims status that they're not necessarily entitled to, and because the regulations are so loose that then people feel that anybody can come to Ireland and stay here, and that feeds into the right-wing agenda of trying to say there's a big problem. So I think if we had a robust refugee policy like other countries such as Australia or America, then people wouldn't be able to argue against it.
I'm not sure we can make our own
right-wing
policies, though. Therein, maybe to some extent, lies the problem. Australia can do whatever they like. Richard, too, like I understand where everyone's coming from in their statements, but I just personally want to differentiate from what I see in that, you know, I see communities with very genuine concerns, right? Probably because they're not being told, they're not given any information, they're not being told how this system works, how long people might be there. They're not told that people are coming. They come in the middle of the night. And I want to separate that out personally from my perspective. It's up to everyone else what they do. I want to separate that out from some elements, some small elements, a lot of them high profile, that are latching themselves onto these local residents' concerns and then saying it's also because of this, that, and the other. Because I think there are different camps there, and I think grouping everyone in, from my perspective, I'm not saying that's what's being done here, but I don't think that's helpful either, Richard, because I know there's people listening that will be listening and going, oh, I don't even know what far right is. I'm just worried about this.
I think the issue is as well is it's actually taking the state far longer to process asylum applications. And as Peter rightly says, the whole issue is that somebody arrives in Ireland and claims asylum. Part of the issue of people being in direct provision is that it's actually, they've had their initial application rejected and then they're going through the appeals process. Now, I think we really need to put more resources into actually processing the appeals process. So when we can weed out the sort of people, and we have a big problem here in England, by the way, with a lot of people coming over from Albania, which for all its flaws is not a country where people are actually in peril and they're trying to claim the asylum on the back of that. To my mind, that's a pure abuse of the system. So I think the key point is that the state needs to process appeals against rejection of asylum much more efficiently, and then be seen to actually deport people who are actually in breach of, who aren't actually genuine asylum seekers. So that's one thing that could actually relieve part of the issue. The other side of it is, of course, is that there are parties who are looking to exploit what I consider to be people's natural anger about people getting things like medical cards and accommodation ahead of the queue. And the other thing about people talking about Ireland being full, we need only look around the sheer plague of derelict properties, not just anywhere in Ireland, even in Letterkenny for that matter. And you could say to yourself, well, our start is not full, and maybe we need to start looking at an effective way of dealing with the scourge of dereliction as well in the country. But I get completely people's anger and frustration about the lack of provision to free medical care and the lack of housing, because that's something where we're really falling down at the moment, and we need to really do a lot better on that.
We have just some listeners' comments. Yeah, go ahead, Peter.
Can I make one point?
Yes, please.
There are different groups of people who are coming into the country. There are refugees from a war-torn countries such as Syria and Ukraine. There are people who are coming from countries where they're truly in danger for their lives, and they are true refugees. And then there are a massive number of economic migrants. And that is the problem. It is the economic migrants who swell the numbers, and they are effectively affecting the true refugees and the true people who are asylum seekers, because economic refugees have no real right to the same status as asylum seekers or war-torn refugees.
All right. And I just think if there was more communication, like even more explanation from the government as to where refugees are coming from, why they're coming here, and you know, you've outlined that to a great extent there, Peter. But I just don't understand why decision makers don't understand that in an information vacuum, there's a lot of different elements that are there to fill it, and also people's fears. Because people, Laura, speaking to local Gardaí, there's quite a sizable population in Letterkenny at the moment. Speaking to Gardaí, they've had no issues. They've had no reason. There's been no crime involving any of these people. But people are genuinely concerned for the safety of their children. I get it, but I'm not sure how much of it's evidence-based.
Yeah, as you rightly said, we've heard of stories, where there's been busloads of maybe refugees coming in the night, and not even the councillors are aware that maybe this is happening. So there clearly is an information problem there. I think that, it really is, again, comes back to, as I said earlier, consultation. Would it be that hard just to have chat with the local community? I know what you were saying about, look, there is going to be protests, there's no doubt about that, but I think there has to be an element of a conversation there with the community. Definitely think that's needed.
All right, just some comments here before we move on. Greg, it's racism disguised as concern, no excuse for it. We're a rich country, but our sense of entitlement to keep it for ourselves and not let anyone from outside of Ireland to share it is just pure racism and makes me ashamed to be Irish. The only thing the fearful are worried about is having to share the takings. Hi, Greg. There is 40 mixed nationalities unvetted and have a curfew to check in and out as they go. These are all men. Who on God's earth wants this in a small village? Please ask one of your panel to explain what the far right is and what their involvement in these protests is about. It's the government that is making Irish people go against immigrants due to them getting everything under the sun when Irish people have to fight tooth and nail to get everything or anything they're entitled to. Who are these far-right people? If you go out to protest now against anything, you're classed as far-right. This country has become a joke. What about treating everyone the same that needs help? You wouldn't have people out on the street everywhere. There is with every topic now, and this seems to be the same with this one, of course, there's extreme views in either direction, Peter. I know I don't want to sound like a scratched record, but I tend to just after I say that. There just seems very little common ground now. I see those who some would call far right and what they come out with, and then I see those who would probably be classed then by the far right as far left and some of the stuff they come out with. And there just seems I don't know where the people in the centre are, but I don't hear them. I hope they're there, or maybe we're just so divided now as a nation, as a people.
I'm afraid all of us have been woked at one stage or another. It is difficult to actually stick your head above the parapet and say anything, because if you mention refugees in a negative way, you're a racist. If you so it's very difficult for, as you say, the middle ground to actually say anything, because you can be pilloried for anything you say, and you will find someone who, if you're someone who is very pro refugees, you'll call them a racist, and vice versa. It's an impossible situation, because anybody who voices an opinion can get crucified for it, and it has effectively stifled conversation. In regard to politicians, I mean, they're all being very careful about what they say, because their constituents and people who vote for them will all have views, so they want to make sure they keep on the right side of everybody. So it's an impossible situation, and it's the woke generation and social media, which means that if you do say something, 10,000 people might have heard it before, 1 million people hear it now. Yeah, and normally politicians like to sort of maybe wait to see which way the wind's blowing, but very turbulent winds at the moment, blowing in all directions, and maybe that's why we're not seeing, anything really strong policy-wise. Richard, I used to think that maybe the extreme was sort of 10% either way and 80 in the middle. I'm not sure it's like that anymore. I can't get a gauge of it.
I'm very mindful of the last lines in Animal Farm, where pig looked to man and man looked to pig, and none could actually tell the difference. I think there's often a circle, isn't there, between the extreme left and the extreme right, where they actually end up meeting each other. I think the issue is, as I've said earlier on, is that this whole issue of refugees and asylum seekers and all of that is actually laid bare, I think, some of the key challenges that we as a state actually face. And, we've failed, we're attempting, but we've failed so far to provide universal healthcare to our citizens. And I think that is something that, we need to address. And, we have to understand how we're going to achieve that. We're the only EU country I believe, that doesn't actually have universal health care. So, that's a sort of, in my mind, a justifiable grievance from the protesters. It's not all black and white as far as I'm concerned. I understand, why people would be angry that somebody walks into the country and gets free healthcare. But the challenge is that we need to, I'm all for welcoming the genuine refugees and genuine asylum seekers, but we're not that efficient at weeding out the ones who actually turn up as economic migrants, and we need to do that in order to basically alleviate the problem.
Okay, that's the voice of Richard Logue, Project Manager in Transport London. Laura McMonagle, editor of the Donegal newspaper, is also with us, as is former consultant orthopaedic surgeon Dr. Peter O'Rourke.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook and at highlandradio.com.
Bluebird Care are hiring nurses and carers across Donegal. Call 912 9562. Bluebird Care are sponsors of today's show.
Sheridan Security, now introducing zero-wire smart alarm systems. Zero wire, zero mess, and a real peace of mind. With a simple press of a button, your alarm can be set or unset, or download the free app and control it from your phone. Call us today on 074 912 6025 and get your alarm from €299. Stay local, stay safe, and protect what you value most with Sheridan Security Systems.
Are you tired of waiting for treatment or surgery? Did you know you can receive immediate treatment across the border under the new NI planned healthcare scheme at potentially no cost? Donegal patients are still being treated with us at Kingsbridge Private Hospital Northwest post-Brexit. The process is easy and our dedicated team will help guide you through it. So why wait? Contact us today to find out how you can skip the waiting lists and receive treatment in Northern Ireland. Visit kingsbridgeprivatehospital.com, because life matters.
The Letterkenny Real Food and Farmers Market returns after the Christmas break this Saturday the 4th. If you care about how fresh your food is and where it comes from, the Real Food and Farmers Market look forward to welcoming you back this Saturday and every Saturday from 9 to 1 at Port Road, Letterkenny.
All right. The council were chatting to us during the week and elsewhere, of course. They've launched a campaign to ask people to relocate to Donegal to work, saying it's got so much to offer in terms of digital connectivity and what you can do with your evenings and the arts and all that type of stuff. I'm all for it because I think it's a great place to live. I'm going to put the question to the panel, though, as well. Dr. Peter O'Rourke, I'll start with you. Would you recommend people you hold dear to move from Dublin, Dubai, London, Australia, New York to live and work in Donegal?
Yes, well, I mean, I'm here 25 years. I still can't do the accent, but I love Donegal. I mean, when I came here, I was told by the guys who interviewed me, don't worry, there'll be plenty of jobs in Dublin. You won't have to stay up there forever, but I'm more than happy to stay here forever. In theory, yes, it is a great idea, but we were talking about infrastructure, hospital, schools, etc. You need a hell of a lot more of those if you're going to increase the population anymore. But the other thing is there isn't property in Donegal for anybody to move to. There isn't enough builders or people in construction to fix the mica problem, which is going to be going on for many, many years, let alone build masses of houses for people to move to. So yes, in an ideal world, it's a great place to live. I wouldn't certainly
move.
We're
not in an ideal... Sorry, I'm asking you the question, not in an ideal world, Peter.
Oh, yes. I would quite happily, if recommend to any of my friends and family to move up here. It's a lovely part of the country, apart from the weather.
Yeah, and also, apart from the fact that you've been on the record a couple of times worrying who's going to look after you if you get sick when you're older.
Fast car.
Okay, just flee the hills when that happens. Okay, I get you. What do you think, Laura? It is great. I would love to see more supports for people maybe being able to get into accommodation, people coming back who can't get car insurance. You know, the stuff. I'm sure there are some supports there. As I say, you know, I couldn't think of a better place to live. What do you think, Laura?
Well, I suppose from a personal point of view, as someone that moved from Kildare to work in Donegal, definitely I would recommend it. There's no doubt that, look, it's such a beautiful county. Even when I'm driving to work in the morning, sometimes I'm still amazed at how beautiful it is. Even in the council's video, they just showed really just how attractive it is to live here. The video mentioned opportunity and flexibility, and there has been a lot of work done on, remote work and hubs. And look, you only have to see Aaron Moore and the work that was done there, which is great. We do have broadband issues, which is another thing that will have to be tackled into the future. As well as Peter mentioned, the housing problem as well. It's grand inviting people up or to live here, but do we have the basics for them? Do we have a house for them to live? There's people in this county with their houses crumbling around them with nowhere to go. We have to tackle that chronic shortage of accommodation. I think there's pros and cons, but on the all, it's such a beautiful place, and you have that kind of good work-life balance, and you can go for a walk on the beach in the evenings, and just the beauty around you, can't beat that. So.
Yeah, and there's pros and cons in every county as well. I mean, obviously we do have some unique challenges to some extent, but I presume every county has the pros and cons, and I think sometimes there are different housing markets as well within it. So, there is, you go to an estate agents, there are some property, there's quite a few properties still there available, I suppose.
As well with connectivity as well, like obviously we've no rail, no motorway near us. And when I moved up here first, I didn't have a car. In Kildare, you don't really think about it. We're on the commuter belt, so you just hop on a bus. Don't really think about it at all. But when I moved up, I quickly realised then I had to get a car very quickly.
Yeah, we don't have a choice. I mean, that's just clear, isn't it? Yeah. Richard, what do you think?
God's own county. Why wouldn't you? No, I mean, I'm actually, funny enough, and I was just saying in the break to Laura and Peter, I'm actually looking to buy a property now in Inishowen, and it's hopefully by the end of the year, might be relocating part-time up there, because, I mean, the broadband connections, and that's the killer deal for me, is to make sure that I've adequate broadband. I mean, I'm now in a situation where I only have to be in the office 2 days a week. And if you're in this, and also, we still have direct flights down to London from City of Derry Airport. So on the Inishowen side, that would be the airport of choice for us in a way. And even without City of Derry, there's good connections at Belfast International, etc. So for me, heading towards hopefully semi-retirement at this stage, I very much want to try and use Donegal as a base, because as Laura said, where we are in Inishowen, I mean, is fabulous. It's like Ireland in miniature, and the walks are fantastic. I think the key thing is longer term, Donegal and the state needs to address the connectivity of Donegal to the rest of Ireland, which is quite frankly pretty poor. And we're hoping that we'll see some developments over the coming months on that. But that's the only really issue. I mean, the thing is, like you say, Laura, you do need a car to function in Donegal. Although we have a neighbour down the road from us in Quickly's Point, she hasn't got a car, and she just uses the regular bus into Derry in and out, and she gets her groceries delivered. So, it's difficult, but it's doable. And I mean, the fact that you've got the local link bus service now has been a bit of a game.
I think the problem with a lot of those is just getting you to work at the right time and getting you from work at the right time, and also dependent on how far you have to travel from your home to wherever the bus might be. But we're such a rural county, you're not going to be able to connect all of those dots at any stage. No. Anyway, another thing too about Donegal, Peter, is that you could pick 6 or 7 spots and have a completely different experience in any of them, couldn't you? It's a very, I'm not sure if it's unique because I'm not well enough traveled to say to suggest that is the case. But there's an awful lot of diversity within the county in different parts of it as well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's a beautiful county. I think there's more beaches in Donegal than the rest of Ireland put together because of our coastline. And exploring the coastline is fabulous. I mean, you can walk and walk and walk, and it's just wonderful. But in regard to the housing side of things, the only houses, because someone of mine has been looking at houses, the only houses that are for sale in Letterkenny are previously rental properties that landlords are getting out of. There is minimal construction going on in Donegal. anywhere, and anything that is one-off housing that people are building themselves. I was talking to someone in construction the other day, and he said there's only something like 12 registered building contractors in Donegal. That's all, and that's why, you know, if they're going to spend the next 20 years fixing mica houses, there ain't going to be any new houses being built, and certainly no significant estates. So, I mean, the potential of finding a house in Dublin is hard, but I'd say in Donegal, they just don't exist.
Richard, you've mentioned a couple of times now about maybe some positivity in terms of connectivity. I mean, I presume you're talking, are you, about Eamon Ryan's comments as it relates to rail? But I know when we talk about that and we talk about a connection in Letterkenny, you know, there's people in Dunlow, Burton Port, where trains used to go to before, Killybegs, Ardra, Kilcar, Malin, you know, Carndonna, that it still would be very difficult. I'm not being negative here, but it would still be very difficult for them to get to Letterkenny to get a train to spend 4 or 5 hours going to Dublin.
Exactly, Greg. With the current bus services, yes. And I think we need to look at this in a very, very holistic picture. I mean, I'm delighted we're even having this debate now. Who would have thought 20 years ago we'd be actually looking at this as a possibility? But it could happen yet. Now, obviously, if we get a connection from Letterkenny initially to Derry and then hopefully onwards down to Dublin, that does make a big difference for the connectivity to Letterkenny, but there's a wider picture. And whilst I don't think it's practical now at this stage, and big and all as a fan of the railways as I am, to actually build a new line out to Killybegs or to Dunglow or whatever, what we can do is ensure that there's a proper, adequate and frequent bus service. Because, I mean, for instance, where we are in Inishowen, and it's a fairly, you know, populated area, and we're very, very close to Derry, there's only about 4 buses a day into Derry, and that's the same timetable we had 50 years ago when I was a nipper. So, you know, we need to actually look very seriously at rural bus provision, make sure it's adequately connecting, you know, far-flung places, or even just not that far-flung.
But is that going to happen, Richard? Because we are a population at the moment of 160-odd thousand, which of course will increase to some extent. It's never going to be financially sustainable. There's going to have to be a subvention, isn't there? I think. That's
there is, but I think.
I mean, are Dublin going to open the purse strings to run this myriad of buses into every corner of Donegal to take them to Letterkenny for the train? I don't think so.
Well, as under the current models that they've been using up till now, everything on transport is often demand-led. So what we often do in Ireland, and it's unique to Ireland, is we put the transport cart before the horse, and we say, we're not going to give you a bus service until you have enough population. But how are you going to have enough population? And I go back to my earlier point about planning. You know, as part of the whole expansion of the railway network, this is not just about adding a train service to Letterkenny and moving on and forgetting about it. This is actually about building up a proper amount of infrastructure so you can actually enable population expansion. Now, if we look at the Ireland 2040 plans that the government have had as policy for some years now, if you're going to expand the population of the state to up to 8 million, you're not going to do that by just chucking everybody into Dublin. You're going to actually have to have a long-term development plan for places like Letterkenny and also places like, you know, along the West Coast in order to encourage people to move in there. And as I said earlier on, there's an inadequate provision of social housing. There's an inadequate, and you know, Peter's pointed out that we haven't even got the building contractors at this stage to build stuff. So we have to take a very, very holistic approach to how we, we actually use infrastructure as the seed to provide expansion rather than which is the current, unlike the current state policy, which is basically treating infrastructure like a reward for expansion. You know, you have to actually develop. We kind
of do it at this stage now. Is if they come, we might consider building it, rather than it might be the other reverse. Laura, what do you think the prospects of, you know, a rail link into Letterkenny? It'd be great if it comes to pass, but can you then see the follow through whereby, you know, people from all over the county would be able to rely on a service that might get them there in a timely fashion to make their flight at Dublin Airport or whatever it might be?
Yeah, I think what Ryan said is that he was a great believer in it, and I think the key word there is believer. I'm really happy that Richard said he's feeling optimistic about the outcome of the rail review. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that. It would be brilliant. But Eamon Ryan said in the Dáil a few weeks ago, you know, while a link between Letterkenny and Derry and Strabane, Omagh and Dungannon would be big benefit to the island, it will be hugely expensive. And that much of that, the cost of that line would fall to the UK government. So, look, we've seen the problems with the A5, how long that has taken. It's been in the pipeline for so many years and still no diggers on site. So it would be brilliant to see rail return to Donegal, but I think it's at best an aspirational.
Yeah, you see, the thing is because we kind of have evidence of this at the moment. Say I'm in Donegal town, right? I can drive to Dublin in less than 3 hours. Okay, there is the option to go 45 minutes to Sligo, hop on a train, get into Dublin. But if I want to go to the airport, what do I do then? Or if I want to go to other parts of Dublin, how do I, you get in your car and you fly past Sligo. Is that just what's going to happen, Richard, with a railway into Letterkenny? Is it going to be a white elephant, really? Is it going to be used?
I think it will be used. And experience shows, and I work in the rail industry in the UK, where you've actually got provision, people will use it. And the projections that a lot of the transport bodies and the government departments often have made on these schemes is way too conservative. I'll give you 2 examples. Crossrail, or the Elizabeth line as it's now branded in London, which is the big shiny new railway linking East and West London together in the mainline railway. The Department of Transport over here, their projections were around about 50% of the actual numbers using it. In Scotland, similar situation to Letterkenny, where you had the closed railway between Edinburgh and Tweedbank, and Tweedbank would be a similar population size to Letterkenny. The UK National Department of Transport originally forecast that the numbers would be so small that it wasn't worth doing. In fact, the Scottish government then decided on their own back to fund it, and they discovered that the numbers went about 5 times over their projections. The Derry line, the existing Derry line between Derry and Belfast, the Northern Ireland Department of Infrastructure forecast that there was never going to be any demand to have more than a couple of trains a day, and that was it. In fact, when they brought the new trains in and then brought in a clock-face timetable, people have flocked to it, and the numbers have exceeded the very conservative predictions that the civil servants and the so-called experts in the Department of Transport have actually said there's going to be. So it is a bit like Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. And, certainly for somewhere like Donegal, where the most practical option for most of us in Donegal to get to Dublin is simply to get in the car and drive. I mean, you need a transport option which will actually get people out of their cars. And quite frankly, buses, long distance buses, and I've done that long distance bus myself so many times, it doesn't cut it for most people.
Okay, well, let's be hopeful. But I mean, Peter, do you envisage me and you bumping into each other on the train as it pulls out of Letterkenny?
No. I mean, it's a lovely idea, and if the train system that was there in the 50s was still there, it would be great if people use it. But providing a train from Letterkenny to Derry, Derry to Belfast, Belfast to Dublin is going to take so long and cost so much that people aren't going to get out of the cars. If you have a family of 4 travelling down to Dublin and you can do it for €80 return in fuel, you're not going to spend 150 on a journey that takes twice the length of time, and you arrive in Dublin with no transport to get around and having to get taxis and buses around there. So realistically, I can't see it happening. I mean, our biggest problem in Donegal is that we have a transport minister who lives in Dublin and cycles to work. If he was cycling from Letterkenny down to the Dáil once a week with his Garda cyclists behind him, I'm sure he'd realise that there is other places outside Dublin. Cycling 4 or 5 kilometres in Dublin to get to work in the morning is not the same as the way it is travelling around Ireland. And unfortunately, the main focus of our transport minister is to stop motorways being built where other people can use them because he doesn't need to.
Yeah, and I mean, even in the county's biggest town, Laura, you would feel you're taking your life in your hands cycling anywhere because of the ad hoc cycle lanes. There's drains in them. They're up and down off the pavement. They disappear at places. Do you know what I mean? Like, we've a long way to go on that issue as well.
Yeah, and I was just driving yesterday, and the amount of, I think the state of the roads at the moment is really bad, just with potholes and things. So it's just yeah, it's crazy. You will be taking your life in your hands.
Quick break, back with more in a sec.
The 9 till noon show with Bluebird Care, providing home care services for all ages in Donegal. Visit bluebirdcare.ie and bring care home. St.
Bridget, you legend. Original Irish rebel icon. This bank holiday, Centra celebrates you and every one of Ireland's modern day Bridgets. The Irish women who rock our world. Irish mammies, sisters from other misters. The Ashlings, the Stunhuns, girl squads and teammates. The fight for what's righters and the stay out all-nighters. Legends all, this bank holiday is about you. So pop into Centra and pick up whatever you need for you and your crew. Centra, live every day.
After their victory over Kerry last weekend, Donegal will make the short trip to Omagh this Sunday to face neighbours Tyrone at Healy Park. Once again, there'll be full match commentary on Highland, with Oisín Kelly and Martin McHugh on duty for the first of the big derby clashes between the Northwest rivals. Throw-in is at 2. Live coverage of Donegal in the National Football League is brought to you by Highland Motors in Letterkenny. Travel in style and comfort class in the Citroën C5 Aircross. Available for immediate delivery in diesel, petrol and hybrid.
Highland Radio weather updates with Ireland West Airport. Thinking of a sun holiday this summer with the family? Fly to Alicante, Malaga, Faro, Lanzarote, Mallorca and Milan with Ryanair. Ireland West Airport. Don't just take off, take it easy.
All right, today will be mostly cloudy with an isolated drizzle and mist and just occasional bright periods. Highest temperatures 10 or 11 degrees with a moderate to fresh southwesterly wind. Tánaiste de Micheál Martin signalled support for the decriminalisation of drugs, saying he'll back calls from his own TDs for a health-led approach. Would you agree with decriminalising all drugs, Peter O'Rourke?
I think, yes, I think the use of drugs should be decriminalised because they're not the problem. The problem are the suppliers. So if you can take the drugs out of the system, then it ceases to be a problem. I think they're actually decriminalising in some Canadian province, I think it is. They're decriminalising all even grade or level 1 drugs. I think punishing the people who use the drugs, as would have happened in the 60s and 70s, for smoking a joint you could get 6 months, is not a solution to the problem. I think it's cut the supply and cut the head off all the organisations that supply drugs, and rather than victimise the people who unfortunately use them. Because that's not going to solve the problem.
Does it send a message out, though, that drugs aren't as bad as maybe you were being told and people might be more inclined to dabble?
I think people will dabble anyway. I mean, it's inconceivable for us to consider why someone would start snorting heroin or injecting themselves with heroin or crystal meth or anything like that. It's inconceivable to us that someone would actually do that because we know what it leads to, but people still do it. I don't think anything by decriminalising it will make it more attractive.
Okay. Laura McMonigal, editor of the Donegal News newspaper. What say you?
Well, I know that the two TDs that were proposing this said, treating people with drug addictions with a justice response is not appropriate. And I think we can see that even in the court system. Like, people are appearing before the courts for, say, like €5 worth of a substance, and you just have to question whether is that a good use of Garda resources and the court service time. I definitely think there is scope for, reform of drug policy. I think legalising drugs probably will not stop the illegal drug trade. It's a hugely lucrative business for criminals, and those criminals aren't going to just shut up shop and stop. But I thought it was strange when I heard it on the radio yesterday.
Yeah, because, say, for instance, obviously the government's trying to price people out of smoking for very good reason, but there's a massive trade in illegal cigarettes off the back of Ilari cigarettes. It's absolutely massive. Right, okay, so you're on the fence. You're shocked. Suck it and see. Let's see what happens, Laura. See, my position on this is I actually don't really know what the right thing to do is. I'm not a drug user. I'm not someone who works with drugs. I know I wouldn't because, I just so it doesn't affect me. So I can't formulate opinion on it because I would be misguided really. So that's why I'm asking people like Richard Logue.
So I think, my position, it's kind of on the fence to an extent. I think certain drugs, so cannabis, for instance, I think should be definitely legalized, but the sales should be controlled in the same way that tobacco and alcohol's sales are controlled. Because if you start to control the sale and actually set minimum standards of quality. I mean, at the end of the day, when we talk about drug abuse, we've got a far bigger problem in all of these countries with alcohol abuse and deaths from tobacco-related illnesses and all of that, and yet they're legal substances. Now, there is a big issue with the illegal sale of cigarettes, and they've taken several moves over the years to try and regularize those. I would have a problem with the hard drugs, so the heroines, the crack cocaines, etc., and all that sort of thing. But I don't believe criminalizing the user is ever the answer. The real threat in our society is the supply chains for these items. So my view is this: legalize cannabis, but control it in the same way that alcohol and tobacco are controlled. But then in terms of the hard drugs, considering the amount of damage those substances use, but I don't believe ever criminalizing the user. It's really about the supply chains is the big problem.
Yeah, but it's kind of strange even now, like that we could all, if we wanted to, get together and go into a building in Letterkenny or Dunlow or somewhere and all start drinking this potion that makes us all go wired in the head and fall around laughing. I mean, that's legal. It's crazy when you think about it, Peter, isn't it? And then the idea is to pick up the pieces. Like, we're talking about, cannabis, this kind of... We can all go in and we all start singing and fighting and falling around the place. It's all perfectly legal.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
No, I know it does, but it's like when you think about it, it's mind-altering drugs that's perfectly acceptable. We have a reputation for it.
Yeah.
But you have to remember historically what happened when Prohibition was brought in America. They banned alcohol, as a result of which crime syndicates developed and flourished. So, you ban something and you have a similar situation with the drug trade in the world, because it's banned, it becomes criminalized, and criminals make billions doing it, as they did in Prohibition in the States. So, there isn't an answer to these questions. It's trying to get a mid-ground that everyone can live with.
Dr. Peter O'Rourke, former consultant orthopaedic surgeon, thank you. Lovely to have you on the programme. Laura, thank you so much for joining us. It was great to have you on. Have a great day and long weekend. That's Laura McMonigal, who is the editor of the Donegal newspaper. And finally, but not least, of course, Richard Logue, project manager in transport in London. Looking forward to getting home at least for 5 days a week to beautiful Inishowen. Richard, thank you very much indeed. Great to have you on the show. Really good to have you on. All right, that's where we have to leave it for now. We'll be back with Seamus answering all your legal questions after the news and obituary notices.
The 9 till Noon Show, brought to you by Bluebird Care, providing nurse-led home care services in Donegal. Call Bluebird Care 912 9562 and bring care home.
Wet n Wild is celebrating 20 years in business with a massive 20% off absolutely every product in store in February. Choose any top outdoor brand product in store and we will deduct 20% of all prices at the till. Buy premium quality outdoor clothing, footwear and equipment today and save 20%. Are you worried about trees on your property? Northwest Forestry Services Ballybuffet are fully insured and have over 40 years experience in dangerous tree removal, tree felling, surgery and stump grinding. For peace of mind, call Northwest Forest Services Ballybuffet for a no obligation quotation on 913233.
Live, on air, online and on the Highland Radio app. This is Highland Radio News.
Good morning, I'm Michaela Clark with the news at 10 o'clock. The Taoiseach has been told that the owners of defective block homes in Donegal are at their wits' end. Donegal Deputy Thomas Pringle has once again pressed the government to commence the Defective Blocks Act. Homeowners were due to be consulted this week on the draft regulations. In responding to Deputy Pringle, Micheál Martin gave no solid commitment as to when the scheme would be up and running.
You'll remember that your government ran this legislation through the Houses before the summer break without proper scrutiny and with claims of great urgency, yet it still sits on the shelf uncommenced. So my constituents in Donegal are at their wits' end with your combined failures and delays, Taoiseach. So, Taoiseach, can you update the House as to the new timeline for the commencement of the remediation of dwellings damaged by the use of Defective Concrete Blocks Act 2022?
I will talk to the Minister, but my understanding is that the regulations will be ready very shortly.
The President is due to travel to Donegal next week. He's scheduled to visit Mulroy College in Milford on Friday. Michael D. Higgins will then attend the President's Cup final on Friday night at the Ryan McBride Brandywell Stadium in Derry. Donegal County Council is to write to OPW Minister Patrick O'Donovan asking him to progress a flood relief scheme in Donegal town. At this week's meeting of Donegal County Council, Councillor Noel Jordan sought an update on the applications for flood relief schemes in Donegal with specific emphasis on the south of the county. He told the meeting that Donegal town is at particular risk, and while a number of schemes have been progressed in the north and east of the county, there's been no progress in Donegal town where there is a major risk.
Last year was the only year that there wasn't a flooding incident in the Donegal town area. Every other year, hugely hit. And I'm asking and I was urging the council to press on the OPW that this scheme needs to be started and completed as soon as possible to relieve the fear that the people and the businesses have in Donegal town area.
The Housing Minister doesn't believe the government is losing control over the lack of available beds for Ukrainian refugees. It's after Cabinet this week heard of a worst-case scenario of a shortage of 19,000 beds for people fleeing the war. Housing Minister Darragh O'Brien says he's fully aware of the challenges that exist, but adds they're working to deliver additional properties. Meanwhile, South Donegal TD Marion Harkin has urged the government to deliver support for tourism-dependent businesses affected by the number of refugees being housed in hotels. The issue was raised off the back of a recent meeting with community leaders and businesses, which Deputy Harkin described as constructive and focused on seeking solutions. She's called for a dedicated tourism officer, community liaison officer and increased bus services. Deputy Harkin told the Junior Minister for Tourism that more of a focused approach needs to be taken.
You mentioned the temporary business energy support scheme, but of course all businesses get that, and that's in the context of the escalating cost of energy, and we need something that's more focused than that, and that's for everybody. But you have to recognise that there are specific issues that I'm talking about here.
Social welfare payments were reclaimed from 115,000 people last year. The Department of Social Protection says the total amount recovered was over €8.5 million. 4 people were jailed for welfare fraud last year and 29 people were fined as a result of criminal cases. Barrister and Fine Gael Senator Barry Ward says the state needs to clamp down on the problem.
Well, I think one of the ways in which the government can protect both recipients of social protection monies and protect the taxpayer from fraud is to ensure that systems talk to each other. So, for example, somebody who's receiving job seekers allowance who then takes up a job where they're paying tax and money's going to revenue, for example, from their employer, it should be the case that revenue notifies social protection that that person is now working.
Weather now today will be mostly cloudy with isolated drizzle and mist. Highest temperatures of 10 or 11 degrees. That's all from Highland Radio News for now. We'll be back with an update again at 11 o'clock. Until then, good morning. The obituary notices for this Friday morning, February the 3rd. The death has occurred of Sean Marley, Clohanbeg, Clohan, Donegal. His remains will repose at his late residence today from 12 o'clock. Requiem Mass will take place on Sunday morning at 11 o'clock in Our Lady of Perpetual Succour Church, Glenfin, with interment afterwards in Kiltyvogue Cemetery, Glenfin. Rosary will take place on both nights at 9 o'clock, family time from 10 o'clock until 12 noon, and on the morning of the funeral. Family flowers only. Requiem Mass can be viewed on the parish webcam. The death has taken place of Stephen Brennan, Lismoran, Bohola, County Mayo. Stephen will repose at his home on Sunday afternoon from 4 o'clock until 7 o'clock. Funeral Mass on Monday at 12 noon in the Church of the Immaculate Conception and St Joseph's Church, Bohola, County Mayo, followed by burial afterwards in St Joseph's Cemetery, Bohola. Funeral Mass can be viewed on Bohola Post Facebook page. The death has taken place of Henry O'Donnell, Glencar, Letterkenny and Carrickfinn. His remains are reposing at his home in Carrickfinn. Funeral Mass tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock in the Star of the Sea Church, Annagry, followed by cremation in Lakelands Crematorium, Cavan. House private from 10 o'clock tonight and before the funeral tomorrow. The death has taken place of Rose O'Kane, née Devine, 42 Ballycolman Road, Strabane, and formerly Stonebrack at Donamana, reposing at her home. Funeral leaving her home tomorrow morning at 11:25 for Requiem Mass in St Mary's Church, Melmount at 12 noon. Interment afterwards in the adjoining cemetery. Family time please from 11 p.m. until 11 a.m. The Requiem Mass can be viewed live via the parish webcam. The death has taken place of Gloria McFadden, Abbey Village Manor, Cunningham. Funeral this morning at St Columbus Church, Dromahal for 11 o'clock Requiem Mass, followed by interment in the adjoining graveyard. Family flowers only, donations in lieu of flowers if desired to the Donegal Hospice, care of any family member. The death has taken place of Sean McCabe, 5 Railway Close, Killygordon, formerly Belfast. Sean's remains are reposing at McGuyan's funeral home, Drumbo Avenue, Stranorlar. Leaving there this morning at 10:30 for Mass of the Resurrection at 11 o'clock at St Patrick's Church, Crossroads, Killygordon. Interment afterwards in the adjoining churchyard. Donations in lieu of flowers if so desired to a charity of your choice, care of any family member or Marshall McGuyan, McGuyan's funeral home. The Requiem Mass will be streamed live on the St Patrick's Church, Crossroads, Killygordon Parish YouTube channel. And the death has taken place of Rose Marion MacDonald, Carnagarv, Moville. Rose Marion's remains are reposing at her home. Funeral Mass will take place this morning at 11 o'clock in St Pius X Church, Moville, followed by burial in Ballybrack Cemetery. Rose Marion's funeral Mass can be viewed live on movilleparish.com. For more details, including any family health guidelines for wakes and funerals, please go to highlandradio.com.
You may think you know driving, but you don't know Nissan e-Power. An electric motor that brings you the performance and response on the road that you demand, charged by a petrol engine as you drive. The thrill and economy of electric driving without ever having to plug in. And it's exclusive to Nissan. Who said you have to plug in to drive electric? Find the drive you've been looking for with e-Power, now available in the new Nissan Qashqai, a unique electrifying experience now unplugged. Nissan, innovation that excites.
The county's #1 talk show, the 9 till noon show on Highland Radio.
Okie doke, welcome back to the programme. Good morning if you are just joining us. It's the last 9 till noon show of the week. Friday, the 3rd of February 2023, and we've a long weekend. Not all of us. Many of you out there working in hospitality and elsewhere probably have a busier weekend than you would ordinarily, but for a lot of people, there is that long weekend. Okay, some of your comments before we welcome Seamus Gunn onto the programme to answer your legal questions. I think that if marijuana was legalised, it would be a big economic boost to the county, as well as lessen the crime rates, job creation too. Another, we all forget many of these drugs were originally created by pharmaceutical companies which never got a licence. Ecstasy was first created as a slimming tablet but had too many side effects and was dumped. Heroin was created to help people off, to get people off morphine. So if we want to blame anyone for the creation of these drugs, let's look closer at the big pharma companies. I think Viagra was first developed as a blood pressure treatment, but when they had the clinical trials, they all noticed something peculiar in the waiting rooms. A caller says, if we did have a railway, Donegal tourism would be booming. Add decent broadband and business would also boom, but Dublin don't want that. Another, in Athlone town, there's a population of only 1,000 people, more people than Letterkenny, yet they have a town service of 11 new electric buses. Why can't we have a service like that? This is a route out to Glenswilly, to Ramelton, Newtown, Cunningham, Ballybofey and surrounding areas. It's not rocket science. We've no public transport whatsoever. Now, a lot of people are big fans of Local Link and they do a good job for certain people, but I think people are talking about sort of expanding that out. There isn't time to build a railway from Donegal to Dublin before climate chaos ensues. We need the land more than a railway. Another, we've taken in enough refugees for now. They will never stop coming if we keep taking them in. And that's what is concerning ordinary Irish people. And I do not believe that the half of them are genuine refugees. Greg, free everything for refugees while Irish bills go through the roof. Free bus to school within walking distance. And again, you know, I know a lot of people out there have concerns, and I want people to be able to feel. I know people are expressing concerns and they're not racist. I know that is the case, right? I do know also, as I've said before, and I won't keep saying it, that there are some elements that are exploiting people's fears and concerns. But those fears and concerns are genuine and are coming from a very genuine place. And that is why I want that recognised when we're having that conversation, that just because someone has concerns about their area, it doesn't make them anti this or anti that, or certainly racist. Okay, they're genuine concerns, and let's face it, not much is being done to ease those concerns, and it's not a bit wonder then people don't know what's going on and get extra fearful of what they perceive. We should take on Australia's guidelines and have a criteria for entering the country. I think the EU's trying to get our population up because we are underpopulated. The whole world's underpopulated, and that's going to be a big problem down the line. And I don't know, can we do that unilaterally from the EU? I know there's certain elements of certain programmes that we voluntarily signed up to. I don't know the ins and outs of that, but I just don't see us at this point under current or even next governments stepping outside the EU in certain areas. The Irish community has about 40 million people in the world who claim they're Irish but never set foot in this country. It works both ways. So many Irish have left here are economic migrants. We have to accept immigration works both ways. I mean, the fact is, we talk about the sad case of lots of our young people leaving here at the moment, being forced out, some would feel, not everyone. They are economic migrants, but where they're going, it's set up that they can work legally and they can rent. We don't really have that. I mean, then when you see what's happening here. Morning, Greg. I heard that the men are coming in busloads, are being taught by the army how to fight, and they go back to their country and fight the war. Same happened in England. Rose, that's not happening here. Another, how many refugees are collecting welfare in Ireland that have returned back to their homeland? We had huge populations here in the noughties that when economic things changed, they went back home, or when they got enough money together, they went home. There is a movement of population. We love it here. It's not for everyone, There's lots of people living outside of Dublin at the moment who probably, as soon as they can, will move into Dublin or a city environment. They probably won't like the lifestyle around here. Let us see. Mothers are the problem. They feel threatened from people coming into the country that might interfere with... Okay, well, listen, that's from the other extreme. Refugees, with Ireland's abortion rate hitting 10,000 a year in the next century, an estimated 1 million Irish citizens will be eliminated from the country. Couple this with the current rate of influx of refugees and asylum applicants, Ireland demographics, religion, politics, culture and national identity will be unrecognisable in a few generations. Thank God, they say. I mean, we're unrecognisable in this country without the influx of anyone compared to the 80s, 70s, 50s, 40s, 30s. Beyond that, I don't know what to say. If someone comes into the country without documentation, passport, they should be turned back. As my opinion, they're hiding something. A lot of people feel the same. If we supposedly live in such a rich country, then why is our health and housing in tatters? The 1% of Irish are rich, the rest of us struggle on. 2%, two people really, effectively. The top two richest people have as much money as a massive proportion of the rest of society. It's a rich country, but I'll tell you, there's not an awful lot of rich people in it. There's massive money that will be needed to be spent on infrastructure before we can welcome more people here. Hubs in the towns will really help this. If anything happens in Letterkenny, Donegal gets cut off differently. The bottom line is what we want to do, or where we want to go, or what people want of this country in terms of the health service, in terms of building houses. We do not have in this country at the moment the workforce or the skill sets in enough numbers. We're the most skilled in a lot of these areas. I'm not suggesting that, but in terms of numbers, we just simply don't have them. So if we want to, if this country is to develop like a lot of us want it to in terms of services and infrastructure and all that kind of stuff, external people are going to have to be brought in to help do that work, because there's simply not can't string two words together, not enough of us to do it.
It's time for NCBI Bingo on Highland Radio.
It's Friday the 3rd of February. You're playing on the yellow sheet. The reference number is S5. It's game number 5. The numbers are 64, 68, 20, 39, 82, 57, 63, 65, 45, and finally 58. Phone your claim to 9104833 before 8 tonight, leaving your name, contact number and the name of the shop where you purchased your book, and we'll call you back the next working day. Get all your NCBI bingo information at highlandradio.com.
On Friday, February 3rd, 100 Euro Millions players across 9 countries are guaranteed to win €1 million each. 100 millionaires, guaranteed. So, play Euro Millions on February 3rd.
The National Lottery. It could be you. Play responsibly. Play for fun.
It's the Right Price Tiles and Wood Flooring half-price sale. Get up to 50% off all tiles. Wood flooring, bathware, cladding, everything's reduced. Tiles from only $8.99 per square yard and wood flooring from only $11.99 per square yard. Right Price Tiles and Wood Flooring half-price January sale extended until Bank Holiday Monday.
Your whole week is lined up, everything's ready, locked and loaded, and then all of a sudden work starts backing up and you're no longer running smoothly, but we're just keeping on top of it. So I don't have to worry about it, and I just can sit back and go, right, that's grand.
Sage customers like Sean keep their business running smoothly with our helpful accounting and payroll tools. Sage, helping business flow.
At Cherrymore Kitchens and Bedrooms, we are now operating out of one new state-of-the-art showroom in Donegal Town. And we invite you to visit our new 5,000 square foot Donegal Town showroom to discover the latest eye-catching designs. Remember, at Cherrymore, you're dealing directly with the manufacturer, which means high-quality kitchens at factory prices. Start planning your dream kitchen or bedroom by calling Cherrymore on 074 9725 822. Cherrymore, 25 years delivering value, quality and service all over Ireland. A public interest message from Donegal County Council.
Hedgerows are natural highways, wildlife corridors for birds, butterflies, bats, insects and mammals. 3/4 of Ireland's 800 native flowering plants find their home in our hedgerows. They are also valuable to farming. They are natural fences and they provide shelter for animals and crops. The season for cutting hedgerows is between September and February. That's when it does the least damage, allowing the hedges to grow so birds can nest and feed in the spring and summer season. For more information, contact the Heritage Officer of your local county council.
Supported by the Heritage Council.
At O'Malley Scanlon Insurance Brokers, they have an exciting new opportunity for ambitious individuals looking for a career in insurance with the following vacancies in their Ballybuffet and Dunlow offices. A commercial client accounts officer, experience required. A personal clients accounts officer, also experience required. A general office person with a view to being trained in insurance practices. Also, a company's accounts reconciler. Please forward your CV to Carmel at o'malley.scanlon.com.
Bluebird Care are hiring nurses and carers across Donegal. Call 912 9562. Bluebird Care are sponsors of today's show.
And we appreciate Blue Care, their support, Bluebird Care. Seamus Gunn of McLaughlin Gunn and Company, Letterkenny and Ramelton, and online. Jones is on the programme now. Good morning, Seamus.
Morning, Greg.
Great to have you back on the show. Get your questions into Seamus, 086 60 25,000. Right, we learnt this morning, before we get to those questions, that the government's strategy of fighting legal claims for nursing home care refunds continued following a high-level strategy review in 2017. This involved then Minister Simon Harris and Helen McEntee, according to internal Department of Health records. So just give us an overview of, Seamus, in your view, give us an overview of the situation that led to the government having to adopt this strategy.
Yeah, and we're in danger here, Greg, of being probably sucked into what I would call the court of public opinion rather than the court of law, because we're going right back to events 40 plus years ago, which actually gave rise to this problem in the first instance. And that was when, somewhere around the early 80s, I think it was 81 or 82, there was regulations introduced which prohibited people who are suffering from a disablement in state care from receiving their disability benefit. So that's strand one of it. And then strand two of it is that those that were in care and not able to avail of public care home assistance and accommodation, who had to go into private care homes, private nursing homes then, were charged for it. And that's the other, as it were, the other strand of it. And now it has come to light that there was a certain strategy, we call it, adopted by successive governments of the day, many of them actually. So they're all sort of tarnished that have been involved, if at all. But they actually developed a legal strategy, we would call it, which is not unusual. And this is what sort of throws me slightly in that there's been great political reaction to this as to how come that they can adopt such a strategy in a case. Well, the State Claims Agency do it all the time with cases. Like if you reference medical negligence actions, for example, that are dragged through the courts for years, settled without admission of liability, even though maybe at an early stage they're seen likely to be a liability, but it's very rare you see the flags being raised. So that type of strategy, I have to say, is not that unusual. There's not many people coming out and saying that, but the reason behind it, I would suggest, was that the government are responsible for keeping the coffers of the state, as it were, and they've seen the potential of really heavy cost litigation following on from this. If you have the numbers that were mentioned, upwards of 12,000 plus people who were disallowed a disablement benefit over a certain period of time. So it would run into millions. So basically the strategy, when you look at it and you boil it down, it was to wait and see what will happen next. Will these claims materialise? In my view, they got very fortunate because they don't seem to have materialised until really now, when it's now highlighted and back in the public domain. A question does arise, though. Is it in everybody's interest that these strategies are now being looked into by politicians, as it were, when the government and the executive who are charged with running the country have to make fairly, maybe sometimes difficult, often difficult, sometimes very unpalatable decisions, but maybe making it with the view to developing a better system. Okay, well, forward. Just to show how it did develop, because everything evolves. So when I say we go back to 1980s, we're 3 now, 40 plus years later. The system has evolved drastically. And to be fair and try to be objective rather than jump in on criticism, if you look at now what is called the commonly referred to as the Fair Deal scheme, which came in 2009, just about the time when they were settling a couple of these cases, by the way, not maybe coincidental, I have to say, but it came in 2009, and it has provided accommodation for everybody who is in need of full-time care at a cost proportionate to their income and their capacity to pay. So we've moved on from that, and there are now, statistically speaking, there's over 25,000 people in full-time care in the country. It's costing over north of $1 billion a year with the contributions from the state. So that's how we've evolved on, and I don't think that should be overlooked.
Yes,
it's whether or not it is now. Is this going for? Historically speaking, is this worth it at this time to be opening this up?
Well,
because
maybe it is, but a lot of the people that have their fingerprints on this are still about at the moment, and whilst things have changed, the cover up of what went on before continues. So like, and these are the people that we expect to make decisions in the interest of the people. It is and it's their failings that led to a lot of people having the medical card taken off them or paying through the teeth for care when they didn't have to. It was they that made the decision. We can't pat them on the back and then say, well, fair play to you. You've made a mess there and you didn't look after the people, but now you're doing really well in looking after us, in not compensating another group of people that you were shafting. I don't really want to live in a society like that. If that is right, well, let sleeping dogs lie, Seamus. I wouldn't, especially considering then, how could you have any faith in what is to come?
Well, let's go back to the fundamentals, Greg. We live in a democracy. The people that are in the Oireachtas and the Seanad are being elected by the people. And it is their job then, when a government is formed, that's the executive, and it is their responsibility to basically run and manage the country. The legislature is the houses of the Oireachtas, and the two of them, and the president. And then we have now, not to forget, now this is basically the separation of powers, the judiciary, where if a law is seen or could be seen to be unconstitutional or could be challenged, they will interpret that. So, and we keep them all separate. But the people who make these laws and regulations are actually representing us. They are us. So you can't say that you don't want. What you do the next time round is you change them and you bring in an alternative set of representation to see
but
can they do any better.
If it wasn't for but if it was, because this was being covered up, if it wasn't for a whistleblower, we would not know about this, and we would be voting in the next elections blindly.
Well, not really. I mean, if it comes to that, then there are many strategies, I'm quite sure, that could be opened up by whistleblowers about government's successive past and major decisions taken. And are we now going to govern in historic terms? Are we going to govern in present terms and in what is required for this country going forward? I'm just saying to you that everything evolves. Nothing stays the same. Laws evolve, they're amended, they're updated. Look at the road traffic legislation, for example, go back to 1961, there's nearly a road traffic act every few years, the way it has developed. Strategies such as legal strategies, there's nothing new to that. So I'm saying that does it deserve the attention it is getting, for example, this week, when there are very, very significant matters in this country ongoing, of which we all know, and in the press daily. But this is now taken over all front pages all this week. And last week, we were monopolised by what the cost of billboards were for 1 week.
Yeah, I would say them. I think they're of different importance. I know what you're saying.
Just the media, the way the stories are developing, while real issues, I think. And I'm not saying that this isn't one, because there'll probably be a system or some type of scheme put in place to deal with this.
Okay.
Maybe that should be done.
Let me ask you a question, and this is not anti-government, right? But unfortunately, I can't sort of add a counterbalance to this, because it's the same people who've been in charge for a very long time, right? So unless we discuss and find out what went on in terms of people being in power when others were being mistreated in terms of medical card access, in terms of having to pay for their care, right? And then those same people were aware of a strategy, right, to some extent. Now, they didn't come out publicly and say, by the way, we've made a mistake here, but we've a strategy here to limit the liability of the state. That was not said publicly. So until we sort that out, how can we then have confidence that they will fairly and even-handedly develop our healthcare system going forward, or develop our housing strategy going forward? How can we trust them to make these decisions until we get a proper explanation as to the reasons they made other decisions to our disadvantage in the past? That surely, if there's anything in the public, forget the billboards and all that stuff, but if anything's in the public interest, surely it's teasing this out. And very importantly as well too, the opposition very, very clearly have to say what they will do into the future. Will they change that strategy that you talk of frustrating cases and then settling eventually on the doors of the High Court or the steps of the High Court, which happens in plain sight, which is very similar, as you've only person I've heard pointed out, is pretty similar to what was happening behind closed doors. It is happening in front of us. So the opposition have to very clearly say what they will do going forward as well. But do we not need all of this put to bed once and for all, so that we as the electorate know how those who we might elect will represent us?
Well, I think I'm not sure can I agree with that, because I think there are many skeletons in the cupboard in this country going back over successive governments. And if we are now to spend our time putting the microscope on those, we're going to be distracted from the very issues that you have referred to: the health, the housing, the significant and major refugee massive crisis that's on our doorsteps. Of course we're going to be, but the remedy is in our hands, the people's hands. The legislature is appointed by the people. If the people are dissatisfied or want to change, they have the right. This is the fundamentals of our democracy. If mistakes were made, then you go down the road of looking to change the people who are in charge, and you move on from there. But you are right at one point. I have not heard as of yet how it would be dealt with differently, or what approach, whenever the hard decisions, the unpalatable decisions would have to be made by a successive government, what they would do differently. So I think that it's not just a situation as simple as the court of public opinion says, and therefore we should all jump in. And don't forget this point, that none of these cases to which this situation refers were actually dealt with in the courts at all. So there's no decision. But the court of public opinion does have the view on it that you are articulating, for sure, no doubt about that. But let's go back and put on our proper legal hats here and say, well, those regulations of 1980, whenever it was, or 81, could have been challenged. Every individual has the right to go to the courts, and every individual should do so if they have been wronged. And on challenging them, they could have pointed out that they were, as has been used the word all week, ultra-virus, that they held no legal standing at all, and they would have won their action. And then there certainly could have been a situation where you had a domino effect, and many more cases came to light. That didn't happen, and events move on. We'll be interested to see what's on the headlines next week. And I probably predict that they will try to deal with this in some form or other by way of maybe a redress. But don't overlook this point, and it's just practical. Who do they deal with now? These cases are going back a number of years. Unfortunately, a lot of people that were involved or may have been the right to repayments and reimbursements may now have passed on. So is it their next of kin? Are there others going to be appointed? Remember, it was a disability for care assistance for probably during their lifetime. So are those coming after them? Will they be entitled to this? This hasn't been teased out. It's all right saying that it doesn't hold any water or that it didn't stand up legally. But where now, if there is a redress scheme, who's going to avail of that, and who will succeed to it if those that are not the proper recipients are no longer, unfortunately.
But for a lot of people, maybe actually an acceptance of what went on and some commitment to try and change going forward might draw a line under this. And maybe that's what the opposition might have to say.
That is what has happened. I believe that is what has happened without it being highlighted in the way in which the Nursing Home Support Scheme Act has developed over the years, and following on from that in 2009, which is a very reasonable and generous scheme to assist and to provide accommodation for all those who are in need of full-time care. Now, that has not been in lights, but if the system evolves, I don't think you can ignore that.
All right, but, and I'm not purposely trying to be emotive here, but you can imagine going back to the times that we talk of where someone was in hospital getting care and being told that the house had to be sold to provide that care, that everything they'd worked for was to go down the drain, that they knew in their final months or years of life that really all they thought they were leaving to their loved ones was gone. What the next generation may have had taken from them. And I say I'm not purposely trying to be emotive, but but sometimes someone has to pay, or at least someone has to say sorry, or someone has to say we actually did wrong. Not in leaked documents, pat yourselves on the back and say this policy we're adopting is working, keep her lit.
Yeah.
And I say, I know it sounds like...
It's a very selective and, I have to say, emotive example. There's no doubt about that. It's a emotive example. It has been used this week by opposition, that type of example. There's no... And again, of course, on a human level, you would understand it perfectly. But from a legal point of view, that side of it is slightly different than the disability payments, because it has never been decided that for those that were in private nursing care at that particular time, whether that the tariff was where the state were obligated to pick that up. They were obligated to redress and to reimburse those who were in public care. And in fact, in 2006 or thereabouts, just preceding the Nursing Home Support Scheme Act, in 2006, a redress scheme was introduced for that. It was passed in the Dáil. There was an act passed then in 2006 to reimburse those that were in public care and that were charged and shouldn't have been. The case that you now refer to, if it was in private care, there was one, I know that of some that were settled again in the doors of court, but it was never actually tried in court. So that point has not actually been proven yet.
Fascinating as always, Seamus. Stay with us. We have to take a quick break and then we're going to come back with Seamus Gunn answering your questions.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook and at highlandradio.com.
Your next move matters, so why not move better? Start your move to permanent TSB today. Apply in-app for our award-winning current account. So don't just move bank, move better. Apply in-app today.
Applications for Explore Current Account in-app for over 18 personal customers. Qualifying criteria, fees and charges, terms and conditions apply. Awarded bonkers.ie Best Current Account 2022. Permanent TSB PLC is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Transport for Ireland invites you to bring someone on board for free this February bank holiday weekend.
Simply pay your fare using a TFI Leap card and your +1 travels free on participating TFI bus, train and tram services. This promotion is valid for travel from Saturday the 4th to Monday the 6th of February. So, with cleaner, greener and cheaper travel, the only question is, who'll be your +1? See transportforireland.ie for details, terms, conditions and participating operators.
Mr. Blue Sky, please tell us why.
The Euro Millions jackpot is a guaranteed 17 million euro. Play responsibly in-store, in-app or at lottery.ie. The National Lottery. It could be you.
I've just had the Eclipse Cinemas experience. Wow, they truly have taken a night at the movies to a whole new level. Amazing recliner chairs, director's lounge VIP rooms, pizza and hot food served to your seat. Have a glass of wine and enjoy the film on the big screen. Try it for yourself at Eclipse Cinemas Bundoran and Lifford Strabane, where the stars shine brighter. By the way, the pizzas are amazing. You can book your seat anytime at eclipsecinemas.ie.
Wild Atlantic Way adventures await you this spring with a midweek escape to the luxury Radisson Blu Hotel and Spa Sligo from just €120 with complimentary breakfast each morning. Indulge in afternoon tea overlooking Sligo Bay. Unwind with a treatment at the spa. Enjoy a delicious meal in the brasserie. Sit back and relax in Waves Bar or surround yourself with the best of Sligo's outdoor pursuits right on your doorstep. Book now at radsligo.com for the perfect spring midweek escape.
The 9 till Noon Show with Bluebird Care, providing home care services for all ages in Donegal. Visit bluebirdcare.ie and bring care home.
Okay, we're still in the company of Seamus Gunn and McLaughlin Gunn and Co. Letterkenny and Ramelton. Right, I bought a new van in July 2018. It had a 5-year warranty. In January this year, I went to get a few things done before the warranty runs out, but I was told it was out of warranty. I was told once the year 2023 kicked in, it was out. How can this be right? If I bought it in July, surely it should end in July 2012 and not January. Sounds like calendar year's job here, Seamus.
It does. It's unusual. It is unusual, and you could understand how the caller would be raising an issue with it. And now we don't have access to the warranty, and that's very important. And I've said it before, and we've referenced it many times, that the devil is in the detail in these and the terms and conditions that do apply. But on the face of it, though, a reasonable interpretation would be that on the date of purchase, and we're assuming now that it's purchased on the basis of it's a brand new vehicle. I think that's quite important here, because if there was some warranty already used up, it could very well be on the calendar year or thereabouts. But if it was first registered to the individual, the caller, in July, and it carried that warranty, it's not unreasonable for them to assume that it would run from that particular date and have 5 years. And there's also usually a 5-year or so many kilometres on these, depending on what make of vehicle that you're going for. So I would be inclined for them to actually, first of all, check out the detail on it. A reputable dealer, which they all are, will certainly, I'm sure, deal with them in a reasonable manner, and they should do, because, and this is very important, these type of warranty situations go back to the manufacturer, not necessarily the dealer. So the manufacturer will be brought in to cover it ultimately. So it should be protected under that, but without seeing the warranty itself, I'm not going to make a call on whether it's the calendar year or it's the actual anniversary of the purchase. But if you were looking at it and being the customer, you would anticipate or expect that it was the anniversary of the date of purchase, assuming it was bought brand new.
And the company could be shooting itself in the foot, especially considering these sort of split years for car registration was to encourage car purchases in the second half of the year. If this were, and we don't know, standard practice, all of a sudden people might say, well, I'm going to go back to the start of the year because at least then I get a full 5-year warranty or whatever it might be.
Yeah. But I mean, in warranties that I have looked at, there could be a grey area in question of interpretation. And to be fair as well to the caller, the manufacturer will take that to its advantage if it can, and that's just the way. That's just the ways of the world. But that doesn't mean to say that the caller does not have a good cause to raise the matter, and maybe it have to be referenced right back to the manufacturer to deal with it. I wouldn't give up on it that easily.
My son is under a ward of court for almost 5 years. The rules around this have been changed. Does Seamus know when these changes will take place?
Well, it's interesting that should come up, because I think that the caller is referencing the Assisted Decision Making Act, which, although being on our statute books for 5-7 years maybe now, there was an Assisted Decision Making Capacity Act of 2022, believe it or not, brought in to tweak some of the sections of the original act, which has not been enacted. And although that was signed into law at the back end of 22, there has not yet, as far subject to correction, and I'm always subject to correction, but subject to correction, I do not believe there has been a commencement date yet. But I do understand where the caller is coming from, because there has been correspondence from the Ward of Court's office in such cases where people are taken into wardship, advising them of the new system that's coming into being. But there has not yet been a commencement date as yet, as far as I'm aware, and that the HSE will be very much involved in it moving forward, and it will be a completely new system. And in fact, it's likely that it will abolish the Ward of Court system altogether. But the commencement date is yet awaited, and it has been long since awaited and very badly needed, because this will drastically change wardship and decision making and questions of people's capacity and being partially, well, have capacity or have not, or could have partial capacity for making decisions. So it's a very positive piece of legislation. Again, it has to be fully implemented, and up to last year and the year before, the government did not seem to have the wherewithal, personnel and different departments set up to bring it in.
What happens when the beneficiary of a will passes away? So presumably, maybe if they were going to get something, they haven't received it yet. Does what they were due to get then pass on to the next of kin?
Yeah, well, it can do, and the point is this: the way they're referencing the question is interesting. The beneficiary having passed away, so I would therefore assume that the beneficiary has died subsequent to the testator or testatrix, so subsequent to the person who made the will in the first place. If that's the case, then when the beneficiary died, the beneficiary would have been entitled, let's just say it was a bequest of €1,000, and the person passes away, the beneficiary is still alive. Well, then that entitlement to that €1,000 would form part of the beneficiary's estate. It's very important to keep this in mind. If that beneficiary has predeceased the deceased, well, in that situation, that actual bequest could then have lapsed totally. So, for the purpose of the question, the beneficiary survived the testator, then that would form part of their estate.
What does it mean to have burden placed on your land? I inherited land with this, and I don't know what the implications are for me.
Well, there are many types of burdens. For example, if you took out a mortgage, one of the most common type of burdens, you buy your home, you get a loan from the bank, they place a charge on it, that's a burden on it. That would have to be actually a burden which would have to be discharged if you were selling it on to give clear title to the next person. Another type, though, of burden, which is also extremely common, let's say you're living in an area where there are a number of houses and there are a lot of common areas to do with roads and services. Well, then there would be accesses and rights of way, and they could be registered in relation to your property and could be registered maybe perhaps against your property. For example, if there was access to another house up a particular road that was common to both, well then, but this other party owned that land, well, that burden, that access and easement will be registered on their title in order to give the person a right to pass over it to gain access to their own home. That's quite a common type of what we would call easement. There could be an easement for other services such as water, sewerage, etc. So there are different types of burden. If they want to check out, they should go to the Property Registration Authority site, and you can conduct a search on your land registry folio to see what burdens are on it and what they entail and what they actually cover. They may require some legal help with that. It wouldn't be unusual, and it probably would be preferential to do so, especially if they want to have easements interpreted legally.
All right. Why is it legal, or how can it be legal, for Bulsarian to refuse legal tender, presumably they mean cash, as payment if they are a government body or semi-state or whatever they are?
Well, I think it's probably down to a management decision, and that's it. With staffing, we all know now, and like it's Bulsarian, in the days gone by, God be with them, there might have been a personnel, a driver and a personnel doing cash, etc. That's no longer the situation, and you have the individual in charge of the bus also taking the fares. So I would say that it's simply an in-house management decision. If you want to make more of it than that, it might be something you would go to the ombudsman with. They have a fair point. I mean, and some people just like to deal and pay for their way as they go along in cash, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. No. But it's also the priority, I suppose, and the privilege of whoever is running the business to make management decisions that will suit the way in which they're running it, and in particular to suit and to facilitate and accommodate, in this particular case, the person in charge of the bus.
Seamus, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time on a Friday morning. Seamus Gunn of McLaughlin Gunn and Co. Letterkenny, Ramelton. And if people want to check you out online as well, Seamus?
Yeah, more than welcome, Greg. Just gun.ie or donegalsolicitors.ie. We'll keep it simple. We'll do our best.
Indeed. Have a lovely weekend, Seamus. Take care of yourself. All right. Okay, Seamus Gunn there. Back with more on the 9 till noon show after the break.
The 9 till noon show, brought to you by Bluebird Care, providing nurse-led home care services in Donegal. Call Bluebird Care 9129562 and bring care home.
Time to support your immune system and gut health. Choose new Udo's Choice Super 8 Immune Microbiotics with vitamin C to support the normal function of the immune system. Illness, poor eating habits and stress affect your immune system and can alter the balance of your friendly gut bacteria. 42 billion friendly bacteria per capsule and vitamin C makes new Super 8 Immune your #1 choice for gut health and immunity this season. Discover the Udo's Choice Microbiotics family range in the fridge at your local health store or pharmacy.
When you speed on the average journey, you save just 68 seconds. That's just around the time it takes to heat and eat your leftover pizza. Speed by 10 kilometers per hour on an 80 kilometer per hour road, and you might gain a minute, but you could lose your license, or so much more. Speeding, it's just not worth it. Slow down, stay safe, obey the speed limit. A message from the Road Safety Authority and An Garda Síochána. Visit rsa.ie.
If you smell gas at home or on the street, don't ignore it. Open windows and doors. Don't smoke, vape, or use a naked flame. Don't unplug or switch anything electrical on or off. Turn off the gas at the meter. Then, no matter who your gas supplier is, call Gas Networks Ireland on 1800 20 50 50. Visit gasnetworks.ie to screenshot the safety steps, save them to your device and share with friends and family.
Live is a different experience with every performance at over 60 Arts Council funded venues across Ireland. Experience live performance in your area. Book that ticket today.
#LiveIs, funded by the Arts Council.
The world awaits you. Make that dream your next adventure. Cruise the Caribbean. Sail from Crete to Corsica. Soak in Santorini sunsets. Dine on the shores of the Indian Ocean. Stroll through cobbled streets for hidden gems, or bring the little ones to a magical wonderland. Trust the award-winning Atlantic Travel to guide your next adventure. Step through our doorway to the world. Atlantic Travel, Letterkenny.
Our wide range of 2023 Skodas are going fast. This is the sound of the Breen family getting their powerful diesel Kodiaq. And this is fully charged Fiona, driving away in her electric Skoda Enyaq. And this is the sound of someone who didn't place their order in time. Order your 2023 Skoda today, before it's too late. Skoda, made for Ireland.
Your local Skoda dealer is DMG Motors, Clare Road, Donegal Town. Telephone 074 9721 396 or visit dmgmotors.ie.
Highland Radio weather updates with Ireland West Airport. Salah, Nunes, the Beatles. You can now fly to Liverpool 8 times a week with Ryanair this summer. Ireland West Airport. Don't just take off, take it easy.
Okay, today will be mostly cloudy with isolated drizzle and mist and just occasional bright periods. Temperatures 10 or 11 degrees with a moderate to fresh southwesterly breeze. Now, viewers of the television. Let me start at the start of the script. Ireland's bid for glory at Eurovision 23 will take place tonight in the Late Late Show Eurovision special, where Ireland's 6 hopefuls will battle it out to represent Ireland in Liverpool this May at the 67th Eurovision Song Contest. A third of the artists are from Donegal. Viewers at home will have the opportunity to cast their vote for their favourite song and help to decide who will represent Ireland at this year's Eurovision Song Contest. The winner of tonight's Euro song will then perform at the contest in front of an audience of 160 million people around the world. And the winner will be chosen by the combined votes awarded by the public vote, an international jury and a national jury. The 6 Eurovision song, Euro song competing acts are Adji from West Donegal, Too Good For Your Love. We're going to listen to that now in a second. Connolly, Midnight Summer Night. Wild Youth, We Are One. Wild Youth was supposed to, I think they supported Lewis Capaldi in Belfast. I think they were supposed to anyway in Dublin, but they didn't. Layla Jane, also from County Donegal, is going to be performing Wild. Kay Mooney and ND. Kofi Appiah and the Nevlone Damper, Down in the Rain. And then Public Image Limited, their song Hawaii, which has got a lot of press. We'll see how we get on. Right, let's listen to Adji and let's listen to Layla Jane now, and let's back them tonight. They are representing Donegal themselves primarily, their families, and we want to give them every chance and every success. So I'm going to be watching, I'm going to be voting. Let's listen. Tell us how you think these 2 songs will fare tonight.
One more time, tell me if you love me. One more time, it's okay not to feel the same. One more time, the world is ending. One more time, people they chase, nobody knows what tomorrow holds. But if you ask me today, I'd never let you go. Sometimes we break and we all make mistakes. Why you still hold the rope? I need to let you know I'll never let you go. 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 So never let me go.
That's not the song he's singing tonight. I don't know why I'm playing that one. That's a different one. I'll get the song he's actually going to perform tonight, which is called Too Good For Your Love, in a moment. We'll listen to Layla Jane, then I'll come back with Adji.
I can't stay long. While you're sleeping next to me, I'm talking to the moon alone. No, I can't, I swear. While you try to keep me safe,
right, that is Layla Jane Wild. I think that is... I'm not going to lie and say it's going to be in my Spotify playlist or what have you, but I think that really is a very, very good song and could win the Eurovision, as I believe this too could for Maggie. Another cracking song. What do you think of this one?
I've been thinking for a while, thought I was missing you. Not like the last time, cause this time I'm not the person you knew. I'm not gonna wait here for you to come back. Tell you that I want you back. Hope you're not waiting for that missing you, cause that message isn't coming through. I've made up my mind up, baby. I have grown up, I'm not your babe no more. I have learned from the lessons you gave me. I have learned that I'm too good for your love. Stone, like lightning struck me down, and now I see our love was so wrong. How did it go so long? I'm not gonna wait here for you to come back. Tell you that I want you back. Hope you're not waiting for missing you, cause that message isn't coming through. I've made up my mind up, baby. I have grown up, I'm not your babe no more. I have learned from the lessons you gave me. I have learned that I'm too good for your love.
Oh, I feel like Ivan Boland here. All right, that is Aji Never Let You Go. And we also heard Layla Jane Wild. What do you think? I think they are two crackers. And Donegal should be representing Ireland at the Eurovision Song Contest. But sure, what does it matter what I think? All right, it is 11 o'clock, time for a news update. Let's say good morning now to Michaela Clark.
Thanks, Greg. Good morning. Stormont's 5 main parties are meeting with Taoiseach Micheál Martin in Belfast today to discuss the power-sharing stalemate that's now hit the one-year mark. It's been 12 months since the DUP pulled out of the executive in protest against the post-Brexit protocol. The President is due to travel to Donegal next week. He's scheduled to visit Mulroy College in Milford on Friday. Michael D. Higgins will then attend the President's Cup final on Friday night at the Ryan McBride Brandywell Stadium in Derry. Donegal County Council is to write to OPW Minister Patrick O'Donovan asking him to progress a flood relief scheme in Donegal Town. At this week's meeting of Donegal County Council, Councillor Noel Jordan sought an update on the applications for flood relief schemes in Donegal, with specific emphasis on the south of the county. South Donegal TD Marion Harkin has urged the government to deliver support for tourism-dependent businesses affected by the number of refugees being housed in hotels. The issue was raised off the back of a recent meeting with community leaders and businesses, which Deputy Harkin described as constructive and focused on seeking solutions. 4 police officers have been attacked in Derry as they responded to a report of suspicious activity yesterday morning. 1 officer was bitten while the other 3 officers were kicked. Ireland's debt amounts to €44,000 for every man, woman and child in the country. Figures released today show the country's debt at the end of 2022 was €23 billion higher than at the start of the pandemic. And the HSE will be offering additional walk-in COVID-19 vaccination clinics in Donegal this bank holiday weekend. Those aged 18 to 49 and who are eligible for their second COVID booster are encouraged to avail of the services. Those are the latest headlines. We'll be back with an update again at 12 noon.
Thank you very much, Michaela. Michael and Fanula are on the way.
Bluebird Care are hiring nurses and carers across Donegal. Call 912 9562. Bluebird Care are sponsors of today's show.
St.
Kate Bridget, you legend. Original Irish rebel icon. This bank holiday, Centra celebrates you and every one of Ireland's modern day Bridgets. The Irish women who rock our world. Irish mammies, sisters from other misters. The Ashlings, the Stunhuns, Girl Squads and teammates. The fight for what's righters and the stay out all-nighters. Legends all, this bank holiday is about you. So pop into Centra and pick up whatever you need for you and your crew. Centra, live every day.
With 231 well underway, are you calling in for a look? Sure, call in for a cup of tea or a coffee and let our sales executives show you the options available in our new Kia range. With an unbeatable range of vehicles, there's only one garage to visit for your next purchase, and that's iMotors. Visit us in Letterkenny or Malin, or visit imotors.ie.
In the final clearance at Watson Menswear Letterkenny, there's half-price shirts, polo shirts and knitwear. Also, half-price offers on top labels like Superdry and Penguin. Selected suits and footwear, also half-price. Don't miss out on big savings in the final clearance sale at Watson Menswear, Main Street, Letterkenny, and online at watsonmenswear.com. Also, a great selection of First Communion and Confirmation wear now in stock.
Direct from the West End, 7 Drunken Nights, the story of the Dubliners, is the ultimate feel-good show celebrating the music of Ireland's favourite sons. Guaranteed to make you sing and dance in the aisles and rated 5 stars by the BBC. See us at Derry's Millennium Forum on Wednesday, February 22nd. Book now at millenniumforum.co.uk or call 04871 264455.
Stop Highland Radio are going to Scotland from Monday the 1st of May to Thursday the 4th of May with the very best of music, and we would love for you to join us. Staying at the 4-star Crown Plaza Hotel in Glasgow, we are bringing with us some of the biggest country stars, including myself, David James, Declan Ernie and Robert Mazzell, to name a few. You will enjoy luxury travel to Glasgow, 3 nights dinner, bed and breakfast with music and entertainment each evening. Join us on the Highland Fling to Glasgow this May for only €575 per person. To book, call Highland Radio today on 074 91 25000. Early booking is advisable. Single supplement applies.
Banking can make you feel a bit... So why not switch to a provider that helps you take control of your finances? The On Post Money current account lets you see exactly what's going on with your money and gives you control with the tap of a button. Switch with the On Post Money app or pop into one of our 900 plus post offices. You don't even need to make an appointment. Take back power over your money today. On Post is authorised by the Minister for Finance to provide payment services and is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland in the provision of such services.
Good afternoon to you. It's still the morning and it's 11:05 and I don't know where I am. It is the 9 till noon show. It's the last Friday of this week. We welcome in studio Michael Leddy. Right, what are you laughing at?
Good afternoon, Greg. Or good evening.
Michael Leddy, writer and blogger. Fanula Rabbit.
Hi, how are you?
How are you getting on?
I'm fine, but I feel exactly the way you feel. Maybe it's the Friday feeling or something. I was just giving out about why 2022 Oscars will be in the 2022 movies will be in 2023 Oscars.
She was,
so
yeah.
But there's
clearly in a completely different year in my own head.
That's the same with me when they do the budgets, and it's budget 2023 and at the end of 2022, and I just can't figure it out.
It's too confusing for me.
I know, it is too confusing for me also.
If you guys watched Doctor Who, you'd be okay with all these dates. Right. I'm just putting that out there.
Okay, well, listen, I'll take that on advice and ignore it.
Exactly.
If you've been watching anything, been out and about, whatever is entertaining you, a book, whatever, film, play, anything at all, 086 60 25,000. Get involved in the conversation, 086 60 25,000, or call us on 074 91 25,000. Hop on to YouTube, Highland Radio Ireland, and you can watch us on your smart TV or on your Fire Stick. The same applies to Facebook Watch. Just search out Highland Radio, and we are here live with you every day. Every weekday except the coming Monday from 9 till 12. Gunther's Millions on Netflix Fanula. I've heard this equated to, if that's the right word, to Tiger King, that it's in the same sort of space. Is there anything to that?
Well, it is, in the sense that the story is unbelievable, daft, and you're just kind of sitting there watching it going, what? The Gunther's Millions is kind of go for the dog, stay for the crazy. So I am not a dog person, not really a pet person, but I was like going, oh God, the listeners now, a lot of dog people out there, and I was like, this seems an interesting story. Basically, it's advertised as being this countess in Italy. They have a lot of people with different kind of royal titles and that kind of thing over there. And this countess left all of her money to her German Shepherd. She had no family. She'd lost her son tragically, and so the dog was her son's dog, and she had given all her love and affection to the son's dog after she'd left, after he had died. And so she left all of her money to the dog, with the trustee of the son's friend, who was like a childhood friend of the son's. The amount of money left to the dog was in or around 354 million.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this dog had very expensive tastes. He
Did
owned,
like fast cars and mansions?
loved them. And loved a boat.
Yes.
Had 4 or 5 yachts. And had a mansion in 2 or 3 places in Italy. Bought Madonna's old house in Miami and all this kind of stuff. And you're kind of tipping away going, all right, this is just, you know what I mean, lads living off a dog, fair enough. And then it just went crazy.
It goes crazier than that.
It goes crazy after that.
Right. So everything was normal up till this point.
Everything, leaving a dog 354 million euro is the least of the crazy things.
It's not even $1 million a day for a year, let's be honest.
The least of the crazy
That's a lot
things.
of dog biscuits.
Least of the crazy things. Oh, I know.
Is it
this dog
entertaining?
doesn't eat dog biscuits. He has like, what's that, Kobe beef and that. And he has a private chef, and his meals are served to him on plates. And his wives are selected for him because they have to keep breeding him in order to keep the money in the trust.
Yes, but I was got a couple of questions here, and maybe they're too sensible, right? Okay. But what did you think the dog was going to do with the money? And secondly, if it has puppies, do they inherit
Yes.
it?
That's the way that it works. The money can only be inherited by his line. So currently, it's Gunther 6.
Was this a protest? Did she protest? Is this a protest? In other words, she might as well throw the money away rather than giving it to her son?
No. The thing about this is there's a lot of twists and turns in it, and you can't really fully describe the whole story.
Is there a cat?
But let me just say, giving a dog 354 million is the least of the crazy.
Right.
Somehow, as with all of these things, when a lot of money comes into it, there ends up being a sex cult involved.
Okay.
I didn't expect that.
No.
I know. It's left of field. And then there's just like twists and turns and fraud.
Plenty of leads for you to follow, presumably.
like this, there's loads of stuff going on with it. And it is all based on a true story. Well, it is a true story. I mean, it's based on a true story. It's a documentary. The documentary is not done. I'd probably give the actual documentary style.
Is a lot of people speaking in Italian and then English people speaking over the top of them?
No. There's a
which is rude.
It's about 60-40 English and Italian, and the Italian you have to
read it.
Yes. Okay. Well, obviously, I suppose you can probably change it.
So you thought you were doing a public service thing here in watching this because it was about dogs.
You kind of think, oh, right. Well, he has 27 staff. He's got 6 or 7 houses all over the world. He loves to, fly.
Does he like the company of ladies in bikinis?
He, amazingly enough, he loves the company of ladies in bikinis. He has several of them working for him.
The dirty dog.
And he has as I said, the son's friend and all this kind of thing. And it just has the whole story. It's one of these things that kind of went out. The dog then...
Did you dream this, Dougal? No?
The dog has its own media person. It has, because there's 2 things.
It must be rubbish, because I've never heard about this.
It's massive in Italy. They show clips from all the TV programs that the dog has been on, all the, morning shows. It's been discussed all over the place. He's the richest dog in the world. And it just
He's
goes...
probably one of a few dogs that actually have wealth. Though, if the truth
acquired
wealth. There's not like a load of...
Very few of them have
it's not like,
themselves.
you know, 99% of dogs can barely put food on the table. You know what I mean? And then you've got this one really rich dog. I mean, it's not like...
And he has 27 staff working for him. So you're kind of like going, dear God.
Does he want to invest in a country in Western Europe, I wonder?
Well, I feel we should definitely try and have a conversation with them. But this is what they say. At one point, the lawyer is buying a bigger boat, and he's like, well, the dog, the documentarian, which is something I'm not mad about, actually speaks from behind the camera, which I know you...
Probably without a microphone.
Pet peeve. Oh, yeah. So he speaks and it's sort of like, so why are you getting a bigger boat? But is it that you want a bigger boat? And he's like, no, the dog wants a bigger boat.
With a straight face.
He does. And then the documentarian is like, well, like, how did he suggest to you that he wanted a bigger boat?
What's that?
It's just, you're kind of watching it and you're like, this is the
helicopter pad?
If this was one of those kind of, remember those 80s sort of movies where they did crazy pretexts like, you know, Richie Rich, or, you know, one of those kind of a kids movies that
you wouldn't buy it.
No, you wouldn't buy it. And the fact that it actually is a true story, just its twists and turns get more and more bizarre.
Right, are you finished it?
I kind of have a little bit left in it.
Right, what are you marks out of 10?
Look, the story will keep you in it because it's so crazy. The actual documentary itself wouldn't. I don't know what I'd say. I'd probably only give it like about a 6 or a 7 in that sort of sense. But the story is crazy. There's only I think it's 4 episodes in it, so it's not, and they're only about 40 minutes each, so it's not a crazy amount of time to give it. If you don't mind doing a bit of reading, actually, with the craziest thing is, I find the Italian very hard to listen to when I'm reading it. Okay. And I was like, and they say Italian is supposed to be like this beautiful language.
Not sure if that's xenophobic, but it's
coming pretty darn close.
It's in the ballpark.
No, but I'm just saying it's
those Italians hard to listen to.
Not most. I'm saying in this particular documentary,
that's supposed to be a really romantic language. Like you're not supposed to swoon.
That's what I mean. I kind of was listening to it, and I was like going, yeah, it seems harsher than I thought Italian. I don't really know Italian. I'm just saying I know nothing about it. But just when you're listening to
maybe
it,
it's the line of questioning that's why they responded.
Well, I just found it distracting when
Did you
trying
give it
to
marks
read.
out of 10?
Yes, I said 6 or 7.
Oh, that's low.
7.
Right.
But the story is definitely worth. If you're not going to watch it, Google it because
does the dog solve any mysteries? Team up with some teenagers and I'm never going to watch it. So
he's too busy spending his money. He has steak and caviar every day.
9 out of last year's top 10 box office films were sequels or spin-offs. Top Gun Maverick topped the list, taking in over €93 million in cinemas in the UK and Ireland. Avatar, The Way of the Water, was second on the list, with Minions, Rise of the Gru in third. A sequel or spin-off has topped the box office chart every year since 2010. Now, I mean, that's one way of judging films, isn't it? I mean, their commercial success.
Absolutely.
Does it matter, Michael?
Well, it matters if, again, exactly repeating back what you said, if you're looking for box office, you go with a proven IP, something that people know. That's why TV shows are like Frasier is getting rebooted. People will turn up and watch that definitely on the first night. It's the same sort of thing. So you're getting like, we now know that Will Smith is green lighting Bad Boys 4. Now, obviously, there's a bit of a career salvation going on there, is he? But that'll work because people will go back and see that. So the short answer is yes, it matters in terms of box office, creatively, quality-wise.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean they're the best films.
No, it does not, absolutely.
I know,
but Top Gun was very good. I really enjoyed it.
It wasn't very good.
If you've seen the first one,
I mean, it was entertaining. It was entertaining, but it wasn't a very good film.
The fact that it's up for an Oscar,
but I had never seen the first one. Yeah.
It's shocking that it's up for an Oscar.
But
the original one wasn't, because it's the exact same film.
Right, I think here there's two things going on here. Someone say, oh, Hollywood's getting lazy, or wherever the films are made. I think the audience is getting lazy then. What's motivating people to get off the bums and go out and watch a film? Because there's a lot of good stuff out there.
But things haven't changed. Go back to the French Connection had a sequel. You know, the sequel series, the road movies of the 30s, 40s and 50s. This is not a new thing. TV was rebooting stuff back. Life of Riley started off in 49 on TV with Jackie Gleason. It was back in 1953 with a different actor. Things were constantly brought back and rebooted.
Well,
Dragnet came back.
A sequel or spin-off has topped the box office charts every year since 2010.
Sounds about right, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, there has been a lot of really good sequels and spin-offs out there. But you would wonder creatively whether it's a good thing down the road. But then I suppose the other side of it is we've had some other stuff, and as you say, things are coming out on different kind of platforms and different stuff like that. So it's harder to judge stuff.
And that's part of, like, even going back, like a film comes out and it's in the cinema, the first one, we say, like Beverly Hills Cop. By the time you get to number 2 in a series, it's already made its way out. In the old days, it was onto the home market.
That's it, yeah.
And it was on television. By the time your sequel comes along 3 years later, more people are aware. So then it becomes a bigger hit. Theoretically, it happens. Like people, I'm going to see that. I didn't see the first one in the cinema, but I'll go and see this one.
Mm-hmm. Right, Netflix, You People. You, by the way, is coming back. It's coming back in 2 slots. Which a lot of people liked.
Yeah.
It's coming back in 2 tranches, end of February, end of March, I think. But that's not what You People is. This is a
film.
Something different altogether.
And it's the number 1 film on Netflix.
Number 1.
Number 1, with a bullet. But not really. So number 1 on Netflix, it's Eddie Murphy's, which is what brought me to this film, because I watched Beverly Hills Cop before Christmas. I'm going to watch 2, and then I'm excited for number 4. So this movie...
What about 3?
3 I have mixed feelings on, but I may watch it. Yeah, it's not as good as 1 and 2. So You People is... There's an article in The Guardian at the moment which says, defending the movie You People that everyone hates. So the response to this movie has been really bad. Critics have given, I think it's 43% on Rotten Tomatoes, and the audience score is 39% on Rotten Tomatoes. So what is it? It's Jonah Hill. He is Ezra. I'm reading from the promo here. He's a white Jewish man trying to make it work with a black Muslim woman, played by Lauren London, and their families are the problem. Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who I adore from Seinfeld and Veep and so forth, she's his mother. David Duchovny is his father, and Eddie Murphy is the woman's father.
I think people are bored of this stuff.
Oh yeah, so this is
out of water.
Well, this is
racial tension
in
a different way.
Culture, 1960s,
different groups of people's predisposed. The word you were going to use.
Yeah. 1967's Guess Who's Coming to Dinner was Spencer Tracy and Sidney Poitier, and I think in terms of a rom-com that had a racial tension, culture clash background, that set the bar very high. And we come along 55 years later, and I think this has failed to even come close to that film.
I mean, Meet the Folkers was...
they're all very... Yeah, and Steve Martin, there was similar sort of ones as well where he was...
Father of the Bride?
Yeah, those kind of movies.
Oh, yeah, and they did Guess Who's Coming to Dinner with Ashton Kutcher.
They did a remake,
Dear God, why?
Yeah, they did a remake. This isn't funny. And every time there's a scene that makes you cringe, it really makes you cringe. I don't believe... The characters are really stupid, I think, was part of the problem. That's why people haven't responded to it. Yes, you can be culturally blind, maybe, if you're in the room with somebody from a different background, but there's a leap to some of the stupid things that the characters in this do. It's not funny. It's not romantic. The 2 leads have no chemistry. I ran into this thinking I might have a good chuckle, and maybe
everyone's wrong, they don't get it or something.
Yeah, maybe. Well, I hadn't even looked at the reviews, so I just kind of went in blind. I'd seen the trailer, but I really didn't like this. I'd give it like 3 or 4 out of 10. I'm probably being really generous, because once or twice David Duchovny did make me laugh. He has very few lines in it, but anytime he shows up, you're guaranteed to laugh. But that's like 3 minutes of chuckles out of like a... Oh, another thing I hated about it, it's like 2 hours out of my life. Didn't deserve to be 2 hours. There's no story here. So everybody seems to hate this. Critics hate it. People at home seem to hate it. It would be interesting to hear if there was somebody listening who loved it and could say why, but it totally did not.
Does it try and come across with a message? Because obviously there's a backdrop to this here, accidentally or intentionally, because say for instance someone like Ye, or formerly Kanye West, who's incredibly influential, and ironically he's releasing some actually good music at the moment, but there's no platform for it because of his very controversial comments about Jewish people. But I think it's so real that really, how do you examine this in any artistic way to make it a comedy?
Yeah, I mean,
we know what the perception of the stereotypical response, Jewish person might be, a Catholic person might be, white person might be, person of colour might be. You know what I mean? We know it all.
Yeah.
What else?
I think it's possible to do it. I mean, the person behind this movie is behind the TV show Blackish, which I've never seen, but I mean, I did 8 seasons, and that was critically acclaimed. as Anthony Anderson's show. I love Anthony
I've seen
Anderson.
it.
Yeah. Well, I have never seen it, but I'm aware of the fact that critics seem to think that works and the points that it makes are well made. But I overwhelmingly agree with you. There was nothing new in this. It's a difficult climate to make a movie like this. I applaud their intention.
Really? What was their intention?
Their intention, I think, was to be funny and provoke thought and make you think about the different sides. But it's too broad.
Our world is not like that.
No. But it's broad.
But
then go back to the original Sidney Poitier, Spencer Tracy. Go back to that, which I saw years ago on Channel 4 one night. It works. Even
but
timelessly.
in a way, the way the world was then
in the 60s, yeah,
simple, horrific, but simple. Now there are nuances that we can't unravel. You can't make a film and challenge people to.
No, and that movie's not really looking like Guess Who's Coming to Dinner is a fabulous movie, and there is funny things in it, but they're funny smile things in it. They're not funny
big
kind
laugh
of
out loud,
trying to get you to laugh out loud. It's more that when things are at a height of tension with the discussions that they're having, that
you smirk and say, well played.
It's like wordplay. It's funny in its wordplay.
And
it's not that somebody falls over or runs into a wall or what I mean, that kind of a thing.
And there's none of that in this. There's nothing clever about this movie at all. It needed a clever touch. What this movie needed was someone to come in and punch up the script and put in some kind of clever moments in new people, because it lacks all that.
Even the title I don't like. Because most times that's actually not used with any malintent, but people are pulled up on it. Even that in and itself. And I've seen it before where people, what do you mean by you? I didn't mean anything. Maybe it's clever. I'm not burying my head in my sand. I just don't think this is the platform to resolve the issues that we have.
I'm not sure if Eddie Murphy's going to solve the problems, as in the type of comedy that he does. I can't imagine it doing that.
No, when he's really subdued in this. Like, he is very subdued. He is almost.
But I don't. You talk about
almost like Clint Eastwood.
You talk about being the number one film. I don't know. I don't trust that Netflix number one, because I don't know if I mentioned it last week, but I watched Echoes, which was the number one show on Netflix, and it's terrible.
Yeah. Well, it just means people showed up to watch it. Doesn't mean that they.
How long did they watch it for?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, they showed up to watch it. They may not even finished it. Like,
what's their market share?
The metrics.
Sometimes you wonder.
They work on the millions of minutes engaged. It doesn't mean that people liked it. I mean, people didn't like it, but it means people showed up. Like me, a lot of people were like, Eddie Murphy.
And this is why Cocomelon's consistently in the top 10.
It's a long time since Eddie Murphy's really been in anything.
I think there's buzz around him since Dolomite. Dolomite was a big one, and it was a great film.
But that was a while ago now.
That was 3-4 years. Yeah,
that's what I mean. He doesn't do a lot. No, he doesn't do a lot of stuff. Like, he's done a couple.
And there's buzz around. There is buzz around Beverly Hills Cop 4.
What would make him choose it?
All right.
I know. Yeah. Could it be money? Could it be?
Could it be?
But what's it that saying? If you can't.
We can't all live off the dog.
Ass, so you need to.
Right. And you can't take the knickers off a bear ass either if you're going to use the word ass.
But that's what they say. I think sometimes with these movies they need to pick a lane. You can't
have everything.
You can't do everything in it. You either going to go with funny or you're going to go with
as a romance as well. The two leads are a bizarre. I mean, it's even the lead actress has addressed it in an interview. I was scanning it this morning. But yeah, people are saying to her, and she says she doesn't even believe in the chemistry between the two of them. I mean, no, it just doesn't work.
Greg, just listening to you on the Eurovision, as you know, I'm a Eurovision fan. Ireland has the best finalists in 20 years. Love both Donegal songs. One will be a winner tonight. My prediction, Layla Jane nips it as being complete modern Eurovision song that attracts all ages across the EBU. And with those two songs, Ireland has the best chance of winning the contest. Come on, Donegal. I think they're both great. I think either. I wouldn't be disappointed if either one. I just don't trust the process, and I'm really sorry to say that. I'm not saying there's anything going on. I just don't trust that we'll send out what will be the best song. Watched Bali 2002 on the RTE player. Pretty good Australian drama telling the story of huge terrorist attack back in 2002. Only issue was the number of adverts on the RTE player, but it is what it is.
It's
even
killer.
More fours. 4 on demand anyway. Hi, Greg and
Awful.
TV duo. I saw Extraordinary over the weekend. Very funny at the start, but tails off near the end. Siobhan McSweeney, finding Bridget, is only in it for 30 minutes, pottering around in 3 episodes. Wolfpack lacks spite, but may chew it on from time to time. chew on it from time to time. Kevin, thank you very much.
Yeah, very good. Wolfpack, yeah, that's kind of...
He's exhausted his puns for the week. I cannot recommend Pamela Anderson's documentary on Netflix enough. Her life is such a tragic story. Like most women, she was only ever looking to love and be loved. I cried for her during it. She deserved so much better. That is, and it even come across in the dramatisation, I think, Fionnuala, that she was just a person that everyone was taking from.
Yeah, that's I haven't managed to watch much of it now because it only landed, I think, yesterday, Wednesday or Thursday. It's only in the last few days, anyways, that it's landed on Netflix. But this is her answer to the TV program, because the Disney program had brought up so much stuff and kind of had done a lot of things.
It was sympathetic to her. So I remember that correctly.
I didn't think it was negative about her per se in it, but I suppose to her mind it was. She wasn't. She didn't get paid. She wasn't involved in it. Yeah. She wasn't involved in the production. She wasn't involved in any of that. And I suppose if you're taking somebody's story and they're not necessarily involved in it, it's easy to see why they can take a negative stance to it. This is supposed to be her answer to that. It's just kind of like a talk back to the way her life unfolded, the impact that it had not just on herself but on culturally. And it's like we were talking about the Chippendales. It's amazing some of the stuff that happened in the 80s that you think of in one way that actually had cultural ripples. And like Pamela Anderson was nearly the start of internet porn, which is just unbelievable.
Well, yeah, her certainly, yeah.
Yeah,
100%.
Not
it tested the tested the market, and the market was there.
And the market was there for it. So it's like, it's amazing the different things, the cultural impacts that it had. She talks about that. She talks about all different kind of stuff in it. It's used with her own home videos, talking to her friends,
not all of them,
to herself. No, Greg. Her home videos, talking to her all her husbands, talking to herself and her friends and different things like that. So I know everything I watch seems to be un-granny-esque.
Poor Granny's in the cupboard. Just come out of the cupboard, Granny.
Okay, we'll probably have a good look at that during the week and come back and report on it.
I wouldn't mind watching that myself, actually. It's only a documentary, so that if it had been like a 7-part series, I wouldn't, but I'd watch documentary.
All right, back with more shortly.
The county's #1 talk show, The 9 till Noon Show on Highland Radio.
The 9 till Noon Show with Bluebird Care, providing home care services for all ages in Donegal. Visit bluebirdcare.ie and bring care home.
The Letterkenny Real Food and Farmers Market returns after the Christmas break this Saturday the 4th. If you care about how fresh your food is and where it comes from, the Real Food and Farmers Market look forward to welcoming you back this Saturday and every Saturday from 9 to 1 at Port Road, Letterkenny.
Super Value makes saving money as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. We match Aldi on the products you love, like Super Value whipped cream 350ml, $1.79. Super Value spaghetti 1 kilo, $1.09. 2. Get thousands of special offers. And 3. Money off vouchers every week on the app. Super Value makes saving money as easy as 1, 2, 3.
Attention all pet lovers and owners. Gary's Pet World Letterkenny is open 7 days per week, offering the very best value on all pet foods, accessories, grooming and care products. Call in and let our staff help you spoil your pet today. You will be amazed by the range of product for all pets, with exceptional value on all leading brands. Alternatively, you can browse and buy online at petworld.ie and we will deliver to your home.
Transform your home with a visit to McGinley's Furniture Letterkenny, located at the Portlink Business Park just off the Port Road. You'll find a huge selection of top quality suites, beds and mattresses, also slide robes and custom-made dining and occasional furniture, with prices to suit every budget. See the great choice for yourself at our showroom, McGinley's Furniture, Portlink Business Park, Port Road, Letterkenny. Click mcginleysfurniture.com.
Okay, very welcome back to the programme. Halfway through a conversation there. Let's say good morning and welcome back onto the programme, Paddy Cullivan. Good morning, Paddy. Can you hear me okay?
Good morning, Craig. How are you? Yes, I'm all right. I'm here in Galway.
Very good. It's good to have you with us. Right, the murder of Michael Collins is in the Ballard Arts Theatre tomorrow night, the 4th of February at 8 p.m. Right, we've spoken about this story before, but give us a recap of it, Paddy.
Well, basically last year was the 100th anniversary of Michael Collins' death. And I suppose when we're thinking about things like, it's funny, I was at something recently where a historian said we're at the end of the decade of centenaries. From what I can remember, the Civil War ended in May of 1923, so we still have 5 months or 4 months to go. And as a result of Michael Collins dying at that time, the whole policy of the Free State changed. There was executions like the Drumbo Martyrs in Ballybofey itself. All of these things came out of the death of Michael Collins, and yet it's one of the most mysterious events in Irish history. There was no inquest. There was no inquiry. The autopsy went up in flames in 1932. Michael Collins doesn't even have a death cert. And I thought that this show would only have a life within 2022 itself, but it seems that the interest in it, it's a story for the ages, a bit like the Tom Crean show. And so I sold it out in Limerick on Wednesday night. I'm doing it tonight in Roscommon and tomorrow night in Ballybofey, and I'm hoping everybody can make it down. It's a fascinating story. Think of a live murder mystery documentary with 300 images. There's even a few songs and actually a few laughs, would you believe, because the whole story is so farcical, Greg. Newspapers were as much fake news back then as they are now, with all respect to great Donegal newspapers and great Donegal broadcasters like yourself.
No, I get it. But this is the type of show that people have to see really to understand how to explain it, really. But audiences absolutely love it and rave about it. But there is something very important going on here and very important questions being asked because, you know, people be fascinated with what happened to JFK. Hey, well, you know, look inward before you look out, because here's a story that has more twists and turns and contradictions and complications and unanswered questions than any story internationally that you could imagine.
Well, it's funny that you say JFK. I compare it very much to that. And yet in JFK, we had 200 witnesses, many of whom ended up dead. We have the Zapruder film. We have basically photography and footage. We have nothing of Belnablaw. There isn't even any forensic or ballistic evidence from there, not a single bullet from the site. We have the bullet that killed Harry Boland in a hotel in Skerries. That's actually an exhibit. But we don't have a single bullet from Belnablaw. It's like the ambush never happened. And this is what makes it such a creepy and strange story. And it's really worth delving into it. Because it's not just the death of Collins himself. He had 25 men protecting him in a heavily armed escort. They were attacked by 5 men with a couple of handguns and rifles. And yet the only casualty in the whole thing is the most important man in Irish history, the only man who took the British to the negotiating table and negotiated a peace. It's unbelievable what went on. And if you think, if this happened in Turkey to Ataturk in the 1920s or to Tito in Yugoslavia, there'd be no stone left unturned. And it's quite interesting you say that, Greg, because David McWilliams came to the show when it was in Dublin in August, and he turned around to me afterwards and says, Paddy, this isn't about Michael Collins at all, is it? I said, well, what do you mean? He goes, this is about how the Irish approach their history, how we mythologize almost straight away what went on, and we actually lie to ourselves about what went on. So it's a great moment of revelation, and people have come away from it saying, my mind is blown.
And we've spent generations doing that on the tiniest levels within our own homes, brushing things under the carpet or settling on some acceptable way of reflecting on it as we move forward. There is lots and lots of questions. Do you give us answers, your answers, or do you propose a series of possibilities and allow the audience to decide?
Well, I suppose what I do is I say, based on the evidence we have, which is none, I'd like you to draw some conclusions. I do offer an alternative based on the evidence we have, which is none, or alternative evidence which does exist. And what I want to do is, I think the audience, we talk down to Irish people so much in this country, particularly from the state side of things, and we kind of treat people like they're fools. And I think that our audience is absolutely brilliant, and Irish people are very sophisticated, and they can make up their own minds about what went on. I trust the Irish people to know really what went on when I give the information. The fact that one of the people in Michael Collins' escort was a member of British intelligence before and after the assassination. That the person who's been accused of it for 50, 60 years has been called a marksman and a sniper in every national newspaper, and yet I went into it and found no evidence that he ever was a marksman or a sniper.
But the problem is though, there is a piece of text or a theory, and that be's established as the starting point, and it's referenced and constantly it dates. It's almost like Chinese whispers, but it all goes back to one original narrative that people, either through laziness or ignorance, believe to be the absolute truth.
Well, I call it the Italian 90sification of Irish history, Greg.
Well, that's why you're clever and I'm thick.
No, not at all.
I like the way you put it. Well, I just went Chinese whispers.
Well, Chinese whispers is a great phrase, actually, because that's how it happens. But No insult to the genius Packie Bonner, who saved our lives, and Dave O'Leary in Italia 90. But if I was to tell you Italia 90 as it actually happened, it was 3 relatively bad draws against inferior teams. We got a penalty shootout by the seat of our pants, and then we were kicked out of the tournament by Italy. Now, that's a horrible way to describe Italia 90, one of the most exciting and brilliant moments in our lives. Instead, we like to describe it as the greatest moment in Irish history since the Book of Kells. And as far as I'm concerned, and you're concerned, Greg, we won the World Cup in 1990.
Oh, yeah.
Not Germany. But this is what I mean. And it's okay when we apply it to sport. And it's okay when we apply it to our own achievements or to our families or to great moments in our lives. But we can't do that with history. If we do that with history, you end up getting about 200 fellas saying they were at Bale-na-Blah. They all took part, the Kerry IRA, the Waterford IRA. In fact, one thing I've taken out of the show is that the only people who knew what happened at Bale-na-Blah exactly are the ones who weren't there. And the only people who saw nothing are the ones who were.
Right, okay. Listen, it is a remarkable story told in a remarkable way. It is a show that has sold out and is selling out everywhere it goes. There are a number of tickets available for the show in the Bala Arts Centre on Saturday night. That's February the 4th, of course. It starts at 8 p.m. and it's the type of show that it's very hard to articulate how it's presented and all of that. You have to go and see it and you will not be disappointed. Because, I mean, this is a remarkable way of relating information and what have you, Paddy. Always a pleasure to chat to you. Hope next time we have a little more time. But thank you very much and good luck with the show tomorrow night.
Thanks so much, Greg. And go to paddycullivan.com for dates all around the country for it and the Murder Wolf Tome, which I'm bringing out as well. He was also murdered, Greg, would you believe?
Well, we'll have a separate conversation about that one. Thank you very much indeed. Back with more from Michael and Fanula after these messages.
Watch the show live now on YouTube, Facebook and at highlandradio.com.
The 9 till Noon Show, brought to you by Bluebird Care, providing nurse-led home care services in Donegal. Call Bluebird Care 912-9562 and bring care home.
McCullough Jewellers in Letterkenny are synonymous with fine jewellery, quality watches and giftware. With stores at Main Street, Letterkenny and the Letterkenny Shopping Centre or online at ormccullough.com. You can choose from their quality product range in a relaxed atmosphere, and their sales staff will be happy to help you make the right choice, whatever the occasion. McCullough Jewellers, making moments magical for generations.
Are you building, moving or renovating in 2023? Think Irwin's Expert Electrical for all your home appliances, big and small. With all the top brands including Bosch, Samsung, LG, Neff and more. Secure your products now with a deposit until you're ready. Irwin Expert Electrical, Letterkenny and Buncrana.
Keep out the cold, cold, cold! And ring Fleming for their full range of garage doors, agri doors, insulated doors, milking parlour doors. Fleming, 91 48 234.
I've lost my car keys. Lost my car once in a multi-story. Lost my patience. My hair? Lost that a while back. But this week, I found things I thought had gone forever. The crackle of needle on vinyl. Leaves crunching. I found them all at Specsavers. I got free hearing aids with PRSI. And now those sounds are back. So's my joie de vivre. Still can't find those keys, though.
Book a free hearing test today. Terms and conditions apply. See our website for details.
Get a great Clarins gift this week from McGee's Chemist Letterkenny. You'll receive 4 beauty treats and a gorgeous beauty bag when you purchase 2 Clarins skincare products. Want to be a moisturiser or serum? This great Clarins offer is available while stocks last, in store at McGee's Chemist Letterkenny and online at mcgees.ie. With the best, costs less. For any skincare advice, call in and talk to the resident skincare consultants Mary or Gemma.
Okie doke, we're back in room, and I'm saying that for Michael and Fanula's benefit. Full of chat, full of chat, as if all the time on air is not enough. They need the ads as well. Right, so I think we did Gunther's Millions, and we've done You People. I'm fascinated at the idea of Shotgun Wedding.
I nearly watched that, yeah.
Yeah, to be honest, this is the thing. Again, I mentioned one last week, which is, the people we hate at the wedding. This is in a similar type of thing, although I don't know how they all end up being about weddings. But it's...
In fairness now, if it was Michael was watching films on a certain subject in consecutive weeks, he would be getting an awful roasting here, Fanula.
Well,
now, you are watching
You think I'm pining
films
for a wedding?
About wedding. Are you nesting? Are you nesting at home?
It's a bit late in the day.
It's
a bit
never
late in the
too
day
late.
for me to be nesting.
Never too late.
Oh, God, I don't know. But no, I don't think so, unless I'm subconsciously. That's what's going on. I don't know.
Well, yeah.
But these are my only wedding things that I've watched. To be honest, I went to this because it's Jennifer Lopez's new movie and it's on Amazon. And there was a lot of talk about it. And Jennifer Lopez is one of those people that you can always watch her movies, but sometimes they're a little bit... They just don't hit the mark. You know what I mean? Now, they're never going to be ones that... She's never going to win awards for them. They're always going to be movies that you can just kind of sit around. Like,
She's always been a pop singer that does the odd film, but it's not great, but she brings her name to it and maybe...
Well, no, but she's done a couple of them that were good.
Out of Sight is one, seems to spring to mind. No?
Yes.
Yeah.
Out of Sight was one that she did that was good. She also did
that had
one...
that had source material in common with Justified.
So it's not Jennifer Lopez's fault that it was good.
Yeah.
Right, moving on.
She's been in other stuff that was good. She's on, and there's been a few things that were very good. She was one where she was, I can't even think of the name.
So there's
of it.
good
She
things,
became
but you
a
can't think of
manager.
any.
I know, I can't think of the name of the movie. She was one where she was like the manager in a thing and went back to college, ended up running the place. She's done lots of different kind of singing wedding ones as well. This is not the first one that she's been done a relationship ones. She's done lots of different
your
ones.
best review
But
ever.
she's also done, no, but like she's done loads of movies.
Loads of movies.
Some of them are great. Some of them are great, and then some of them like Made in Manhattan and that kind of thing. There's no chemistry there.
M-A-D-E.
Yeah,
Or
there's no
M-A-I-D.
M-A-I-D.
Yeah.
There's no chemistry there, and things don't necessarily work out. But she's like, I mean, the same as a lot of kind of considering. Well, I mean, she's an A-lister name with kind of a B-lister movies, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But they're fine. But that's why I'm saying. That's why I put this in line with the other thing. This is a solid movie for what it is. She never does anything that's really tapping into a strength of drama in her performances or whatever. This has got explosions, it's got fun running around,
Jennifer Coolidge,
lads getting killed, jumping off stuff, all that kind of stuff. Jennifer Coolidge is
It's
in it.
Die Hard at a wedding,
It's got
basically.
men jumping off things, dying, explosions.
That's it.
But that's what we want.
At a wedding.
Yeah.
You're sitting down, you know what I mean? You're sitting down and you just want something that you can check out.
Yes.
And, just sit there, have a glass of wine, talk if you wanted through it, whatever, it's fine. But it's actually, I don't know anybody that's watched it that came away thinking, dear God. Whereas I'm also at the same time trying to get through. Myself and my friends all kind of watch the Oscar movies when they come up.
Yeah.
And it's a struggle. It's a struggle.
Because you point to an
we don't all want to be highbrow.
No, exactly.
There's no need.
Exactly. But it's you approach different films with different expectations, don't you? And I think if you're sitting down Friday night, a glass of whatever, shotgun wedding with Jennifer Lopez and Josh Duhamel, you aren't expecting not to be able to sleep as you try and unravel the subplots of this masterpiece, are you?
Yeah, and
you're going to go to bed entertained.
That's it. You're going to come away from it you're going to sit down, get yourself a nice bar of chocolate, a nice glass
talking
of
my
something.
language.
That's it. Nice glass
Fruit
of
and nuts
something. Just
out of the
relax.
fridge.
Put your feet up. That's it. Put your feet up and watch this movie, and you won't come away from it unhappy. It is exactly what it says on the tin, and it actually hits the mark. A lot of the times, these movies, you kind of sit down thinking, and then you're like, "Oh, that was ridiculous," or whatever.
Is it action, comedy?
It is
romance.
It would consider itself all three, which is always a difficult thing to do. Basically, the story is that Jennifer Lopez and Josh Duhamel are getting married. They're he's a sports star, so they have a few pound behind them. She comes from a very wealthy family, and they decide to have this massive, big destination wedding. He's all about it, organising it, the whole thing, and hasn't shown much interest in it all along. And then all of a sudden, some Somalian, or I shouldn't say that, I don't know where they're from, some pirates show up, and it all sort of kicks off from there. And so they end up all kind of being held hostage. And
did it ever get a cinema release? So
no, it's an Amazon movie. Okay. It was made for Amazon, so it's not that it's good. That's the thing now. We kind of have that sort of an attitude that the things went to cinema or they went another way. But now you've all these movies with big names in it that
and
are
it
never.
Doesn't mean they're low budget either.
No,
no.
Oh God, there's a lot of money spent in this now. There's a lot of explosions in it. There's, you know what I mean. There's helicopters falling out of the sky, all kinds of crack in it. So there's definitely, and it's beautiful.
Men dying as well, by the way. Just
leaping off things.
The setting is beautiful. They do leap off things all the time.
Yeah, well, you know, that's what you want in a film.
There used to be a show on ITV on a Saturday morning. It was like behind the scenes where they showed you how certain parts of films were
Like
made.
the stunts and stuff, wasn't it?
I used to love that. Brilliant. You don't do that really anymore. It was a great show. It was a great show. It had Terminator stunts were done, or you know, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Or TJ Hooker or whatever. It was.
Oh, you're talking my language.
So, Shotgun Wedding with Jennifer Lopez, Josh Duhamel. It hits a lot of boxes. Ticks them.
It does exactly what it
What
says
are you giving
on
it
the
out of 10, though?
Well, in its genre, as in, if you want to call it
asterisks incoming.
I mean, I'm elevating it there slightly by giving it a genre, but you know what I mean. In that kind of, like, as you say, what is it? A romantic comedy, action, romance, that kind of thing.
Sounds like Red or some of those films.
Yeah,
is it that kind?
Seems like it.
Yeah, I actually. If you were going to tell me now, I'd say it's more Red 2 than it is Red.
Yeah,
I really liked Red. And I would give Red very high marks, but then when Red 2 was a little bit...
It was watchable, but it wasn't up to Red, yeah.
It wasn't up to the original one, and that's what I would give it. I would give this a Red 2. You give it a solid 7 or 8. You'll sit there, you won't be disappointed, you'll walk away from it, and you won't be halfway through going, I'm sorry, why? Why am I watching this?
All right.
Which is the reaction from some people with their Oscar movies trying to catch up with them going.
All right, back shortly.
Bluebird Care are hiring nurses and carers across Donegal. Call 912 9562. Bluebird Care are sponsors of today's show.
Guess what? What? Larkins of New Mills are offering an early bird special for only $6.95 Monday to Friday from 12 p.m. to 4 p.m. A full menu is available 7 days per week along with daily lunch specials. Call in anytime to Larkins of New Mills or phone 074 9126 679 and let our family look after yours.
Hello, thanks for waiting. Could you hold the line?
Yeah, no problem.
Now, how can I help you?
Hi, I'm looking to make some updates to my insurance policy.
Have you tried our online portal?
I thought it would be easier to call.
Yeah. No. You're going to have to log on to amend your policy. Thanks for calling.
No, wait. I don't know my password.
Get the feeling that your insurer doesn't want to talk to you? At Local Insurance, we understand your needs. Call today for a bespoke quote or find us online at localinsurance.ie. Local Insurance, we'll get you sorted. The Local Insurance Network, DAC Trading's Local Insurance, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. Local Insurance is a tied insurance intermediary of Acorn Brokerage Limited. Acorn Brokerage Limited, trading as Acorn Insurance, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Wet n Wild is 20 years in business and would like to thank and reward our loyal customers with a massive 20% off absolutely every product purchased in store during the month of February. Choose from our massive in-store stock of quality outdoor clothing, footwear, equipment and accessories, and 20% discount of all prices will be applied at the till.
At Cooney's Home Interiors, we pride ourselves on offering you the very best in choice, quality and value on all home furnishings. Treat your home with a visit to Cooney's today and choose from our large range of suites, tables, beds, not to mention our large selection of home accessories. Our motto is, if you see it, you can buy it, and we will deliver it to your door. Cooney's Home Interiors, Letterkenny Retail Park. Style and perfection at incredible value.
Highland Radio weather updates with Ireland West Airport. Discover Edinburgh this summer with Ryanair's 3 times weekly service. Stunning architecture, endless winding streets and an awe-inspiring castle. Ireland West Airport. Don't just take off, take it easy.
Mostly cloudy with isolated drizzle and mist and just occasional bright periods. Highest temperatures of 10-11 degrees with a moderate to fresh southwesterly breeze. Now, all roads lead to the Silver Tassie tomorrow evening because trucking for Creasla will take place tomorrow. Colin Kilpatrick is the organiser. Colin, good morning to you. Final preparations being put in place, I'm sure.
Morning, Greg. Yeah, we're getting there now.
Right, okay, so what's the call out today? You're still looking for people to get involved in the big auction that's taking place? You're still looking for lorries and flatbeds and vans and what have you to join the procession?
Well, the auction, Greg's online now, up on Facebook. All the lots are on. It's starting at 8 o'clock sharp. The auction will be. There will be a bit of music before it, but just the lots are on Facebook now for anybody that wants to see, and there's nearly 120 lots, so a lot of stuff, and everything's brilliant that we have. So
brilliant. So people can go on Facebook now, find out what they might want to bid on. Now, is it the Trucking for Creasler Facebook page?
Yeah, it's an event, Trucking for Creasler, so you'll get it on there. It's on there now, yeah.
Rightio. Now, obviously, there's going to be some amazing vehicles out and about yesterday. The guards, and we'll be carrying that information, are advising motorists of the route and to expect some delays, but they're going to keep things moving just as well as they can. Most, I think, are meeting at the yard in Ballybofey. At what time tomorrow, Colin? And then heading where? And we also know that on the way, others will join the convoy.
Yeah, so meeting at Bernard Long's yard, Ballybofey. Most of the lorries are going there, so get up early. It's leaving 1 o'clock sharp. The Garda Síochána is leading it. We have to pull it at 1 o'clock, whatever happens, whoever's there or not. So I just want everybody to be up so they don't miss it, to get registered. There are a lot of the auction stuff on display. There's tea and coffee on there. The drivers have to be briefed just so we can let the drivers know if there's any, what has to be done on the run if there's an emergency, or the guards or ambulances or anything has any problems, just so the drivers can be briefed. And the same for the Applegreen and Letterkenny. If the Applegreen falls out, which it probably will because we're getting such a big response, there's an overspill car park at the back of the Clanry Hotel. They have kindly given us the back of the hotel, the big massive car park.
Brilliant. I mean, that's perfect. Right, so and people can get out and watch as these vehicles go past as well. They're leaving Ballybofey at 1 o'clock, making the way through Letterkenny, out to Creasler, turning at Creasler, and then heading back towards the Silver Tassie. And then things get underway from about 7 p.m. at the Tassie, is that right?
That's right, yeah, 7 p.m. So Termon, Mulford, Ramelton people, we're going through your towns. Get out and see us. And we'll be then up to the Silver Tassie, so everything's kicking off at 7 and the auction's at 8, so be there sharp. There's a lot of brilliant stuff. So
lorry parts, new tyres, sheep, tools. There's a wide variety of stuff to be auctioned on the night.
There's a wide variety.
And things are going to have to move quickly at the auction, I think. People are going to have to bid quickly because there's a lot of stuff to get through. Because after that, you've got the David Craig Band and DJ Tubbsy providing entertainment alongside some special guests. Tickets are €15. We say doors open at 7 p.m. Go along and support it. Colin, who himself was involved in the aftermath and the recovery in the Creasler tragedy, very moved by this, as we know from speaking to Colin in the past, and he and all of his crew are doing this to support the fund. Right, Colin, lastly, you've had an amazing response to this. I think it's probably grown into something bigger than even you could have imagined. It's amazing, really, what's happening, isn't it?
Well, and my target set between 60 and 80 lorries, and if it was going to go very well, maybe 100. We're probably going to have 300 lorries. We have 120 lots. We couldn't ask for anything more, and I just want to thank everybody from the bottom of my heart that has donated, and even all the lorry men, yourself as well, for the interview, Greg. You made it so easy and for the difficult that it was.
And thank you, Colin.
Just to talk about that, and thanks very much, and the guards as well.
And I know there's a lot of people out there who want to thank you as well. So hopefully we'll see you tomorrow night. See everyone there. Take care, Colin. Well done to you. And I mean
thanks very much.
All right,
Thank
take
you.
care. All right, bye-bye. Okay, that's going to be a big one. It's going to be huge. Right, okay. I saw a lot of backlash on... Well, I'm not going to get into that one because it's a bit controversial and we just don't have the time to do it justice. And it's not the type of issue that really you just want to brush across on. There's another one too controversial to get into at the moment. So what should we talk about? Romantic Getaway on Sky.
Romantic Getaway on Sky. That's nothing controversial about that, although I could drop you in it by saying what a controversial show this has proved to be. It's a half-hour comedy drama. I like Sky shows. Code 404 is one of my all-time favourite comedies of recent years. I love Intelligence as well. I think it's a great comedy. So I went into this with high expectations. Ramesh Ranganathan Stand-up comedian, is the brains behind this, co-creator and
He's
star.
all over everything, isn't he?
He's huge, yeah. He's on a lot. You see his specials. He's been on Jonathan Ross a lot and various things. So it's a comedy drama, and I know, Greg, you love comedy dramas.
Or drama comedies.
Or drama comedies. So basically you have a couple. Catherine Ryan is the co-star, and there's also a stand-up comedian.
She's very good as well.
Yeah, they're very funny people.
She was in The Masked Singer, I think.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. So they're a married couple who desperately trying to have a child, and she's going through all those fertilization treatments, which are very expensive and very painful. And their boss, Johnny Vegas, again,
good cast.
yeah, it's a fantastic cast. Don't get your hopes up though.
Right.
Keep your hopes. He is a bit of a dodgy kind of boss, and he won't pay them their bonuses, and he owes them money, and they're not. So basically, they decide that they're going to steal from him 50 grand. Via some of his dodgy dealings, Bitcoin or some kind of cryptocurrency type thing. And at the last minute, staring at this $1 million+ secret bank account, our hero adds a zero and ends up taking $500,000.
And that's where we're going to have to.
Oh, okay, right.
Unfortunately. You're not giving it. Are you enjoying it?
No.
Okay.
I finished it.
Right. Marks out of 10?
6.
Really? Okay, that's okay. If you don't enjoy something, you're going to have to start going under 5.
Yeah, it's okay.
Seriously.
It's okay.
It
walks a line.
Why?
It's brutal. What would you give it? 6 or 7?
No, I haven't watched anything.
Well, I gave you people 4. 4 is good. 4 is about, and this is way better than 4.
Joking, whatever you want.
Yeah.
Fionnuala, thank you so much for your really entertaining contributions as always. Same to you, Michael. God bless you. Enjoy your weekends. Okay, that's where we have to leave it on the programme. Thanks for listening to the show and getting involved. We're back with you on Tuesday because, of course, we